So glad you could join us. I'm Phyllis Jackson.
The FAA facilitates the first mass air shipment of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine from Belgium to the United States. The vaccines are being placed at designated distribution sites so they can be shipped immediately once they are authorized by the FDA. Vaccinations could begin within 2 weeks. Moderna files for emergency use authorization approval from the FDA. The latest report shows its vaccine is 94.1% effective in preventing the virus and 100% effective at preventing severe disease. For the latest on the vaccine distribution efforts, we caught up with Emory infectious disease expert Dr. Carlos Del Rio.
The FDA will then convene a panel. I hear that it will take place on December 10th to review the applications not only on Moderna and Pfizer. I suspect both will be approved. We need to continue practicing our mitigation strategies of masking, social distancing, until we get enough of the U.S. population vaccinated that transmission of the virus goes away, until we get what's called herd immunity. So don't think that as a vaccine, as a switch that you turn on, the light is there and we're done. It's more going to be like a faucet that you're slowly turning off. And as you're turning it off, the water starts, receding, but it won't go away immediately.
Will Congress get a COVID-19 relief package passed? They're running out of time. The package will require billions in order to distribute the coronavirus vaccine nationwide. CVS and Walgreens among the pharmacies set up to distribute free COVID-19 vaccinations once they become available. Early voting begins December 14th for the January 5th Senate runoff between Kelly Loeffler and Reverend Raphael Warnock, along with Senator David Perdue and John Ossoff. The races will determine control of the U.S. Senate. Black Friday sales see a 22% increase online, but traditional Friday traffic to brick-and-mortar stores dropped by more than 50%. Atlanta City Council member Marcy Collier Overstreet drops off a special delivery to Ben Hill Christian Church. Thanks to a generous donation from Walmart, some District 11 residents will be able to pick up Christmas trees for their homes.
Glad you could spend a little time with us. We'll see you on the next edition of Stay at Home Connect.
Okay.
What's going on today?
Today we're in West End at the Goodwill, and I'm one of the people that are being honored as an unsung hero.
Cleta is my girl. Cleta is one of the hardest working council members in the city.
Cleta's been providing leadership on council since I was in kindergarten.
Talk to that girl right now. What would you say? What would you say to her?
You mean from back then?
Just talk to her. Just talk to her.
Wow, you come a long way. And you're not done yet. You still got many miles to go.
Did she believe she would get on a wall?
No.
She didn't do it for the wall, did she?
It's very special to be honored. Somebody wanted my photograph a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't send it. I said, I don't need to be honored. So I didn't think any more about it until somebody sent me the mural, a picture of the mural. So I thought they were playing a joke on me, so I had to come over and see it. So it's a privilege. Tennessee State University and Clark Atlanta University School of Social Work helped to make me. But God has led me to this place, and I'm very grateful.
Job well done, madam.
Very good.
Job well done. Job well done.
Thank you.
Welcome to Stay at Home Connect. I'm Phyllis Jackson.
Many Georgia hospitals and intensive care units approaching capacity. Dr. Janet Memark is the Public Health Department Director for Cobb and Douglas County.
We have critically low critical care beds at this point, so probably one available in the county, and then there are low medical surgical beds. So remember previously I had said that the hospitals were busy and they weren't all COVID patients. Well, we're seeing more and more COVID patients that are being admitted.
Georgia election workers are back at work recounting votes from the presidential race. The Trump administration made the request. Unlike the hand count, which confirmed Joe Biden as the winner, this time the ballots are going through a scanner. Georgia counties have a deadline of December 2nd. Despite the warnings from the CDC advising against travel, millions of people are doing just that this Thanksgiving week. The TSA reporting more than 1 million people screened at U.S. airports. Atlanta City Council member Natalie Archibong takes part in a special Thanksgiving food giveaway with the Marcel Anderson Foundation. The event took place at the East Lake YMCA.
Before COVID-19, this wonderful foundation that was birthed out of a business in East Atlanta decided to help families have the ability to have a home-cooked meal. Instead of standing in line for food around Thanksgiving, cook the food at your own house. Have the dignity of independence and being supported by your community.
Residents received everything from dressing and vegetables, along with a gift card for turkey. Atlanta City Council member Marcy Collier Overstreet joins with reality star Candy Burris Tucker and Gooder for a Thanksgiving grocery store pop-up.
This Thanksgiving is not like any other Thanksgiving. Everyone has challenges that they've never had before. And more than ever, everyone needs these groceries, and they really want to get with their family in a small setting to enjoy Thanksgiving. And this is a way that we're doing that.
Everybody hold your horns if you're ready for the holiday.
Councilmember Andrea Boone joins Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms and rapper T.I. for the annual Thanksgiving food giveaway at Jackson Memorial Church. Endless rows of turkeys, collard greens, and other Thanksgiving dinner staples were handed out during the drive-thru event.
We are here to celebrate Thanksgiving with some of the residents in this community that are really in need of help.
That's a wrap. We'll see you on the next edition of Stay at Home Connect.
Let's do it. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It is 1:30 on this, the second day of December. This is our final Finance and Executive Committee meeting in this wonderful year of 2020. I'm Howard Shook, the Vice Chair. Our Chair, Ms. Ide, has a doctor's appointment. So let's kick it off with the roll call, please, Ms. Kempson-Wright.
Councilmember Jennifer N. Ide. Councilmember Howard Shook.
Aye.
Councilmember Natalie Mosby Archibald.
Here.
Councilmember Andre Dickens.
Here.
Councilmember Daisy Mazikite.
Here.
Councilmember Joyce M. Shepherd. Councilmember Matt Westmoreland.
Here.
Mr. Vice Chair, you do have a quorum present.
Yes, thank you. Are there any members who are not able to log in and are audio only?
Thank you for asking. This is Archibald. I'm trying to log on, but so far not yet.
All right. Thank you. As regards today's agenda, you know, what says happy holidays more than a 55-item finance agenda? That's what we're looking at, and one of those items, unfortunately, is a walk-in, and so I will make a motion to accept the agenda as amended with one walk-in.
Second, Mazikite.
All right, if there's no questions or comments, let's open that vote. Is this voice vote?
No, sir, it's not. We're opening the vote to amend the agenda.
Thank you.
Will everyone please vote?
I vote yes. This is Archibald.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go ahead and close the vote. And
right,
we will need a motion. Are you not? We're getting ready to close it.
Okay, there it is. Regrettably, the agenda has been adopted as amended. You've all poured over the minutes of the prior meeting. I will move the adoption of them. Is there a second?
Second, this is Archibald. What?
Ms. Archibald, yes? Hello?
Mr. Chair, actually we had a motion to amend the agenda, and now we need to adopt the agenda as amended. If we could have a motion and a second for that.
All right, I thought the motion was to adopt as amended, so I'll go ahead and make that motion.
Second, this is Archibald.
All right, let's open the vote. Adopting the agenda as amended.
The vote is open.
Hello, I'm here. This is George Shepherd. I'm sorry, I just plugged in. So what are we voting on? I'm sorry.
Adopting the agenda as amended with one walk-in paper.
Thank you.
Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries, so ordered, and now I will move approval of the minutes.
Second, this is Archibald.
All right, let's open that vote.
The vote is open.
All right, motion carries. The minutes are adopted. And we have the public comment statement, or the meeting statement followed by public comment.
Yes. This Finance Executive Committee meeting is being conducted remotely as advertised and as in accordance with OCGA 5014-1. The meeting will be conducted in conformance with Robert's Rules of Order and the Rules of Council as authorized by City Code. The public may access the meeting by the following conference bridge. Toll-free access 877-579-6743. Conference ID 831-599-1256, which was noted on the Friday, November 20th public meeting notice. The public may also view the meeting on Channel 26, citycouncil.atlantaga.gov, or the Council's YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter pages via ATL Council. All presentations are available on the Atlanta City Council Finance Executive Committee presentation page. The agenda was published and made available on Tuesday, November 24th via atlantacitygA.iqm2.com. Public comment was accepted between the hours of 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. on yesterday, Tuesday, December 1st. All persons present on the remote council meeting conference bridge are requested to mute your phones and speakers. Additionally, speakers must be acknowledged by the presiding officer prior to speaking. Each council member is requested to open your Outlook email and minimize the screen. Amendments, substitutes, and informational documents were distributed to committee members beforehand, and we thank you all in advance for your cooperation.
Thank you. And public comment?
How many minutes?
Mr. Chair, we have one comment with that is 2 minutes and 52 seconds.
Thank you. Proceed.
Greetings to you, committee members and staff. A special greetings to you, citizens of Atlanta, who have tuned into these proceedings and are taking note of the degree to which public comments made by citizens are being honored or ignored. Ben Howard, Senior Advocate, Public Policy Analyst. Neighborhood Planning Unit R allows no committee reports, and especially no reports dealing with finance. Let's talk finance, NPUR. Let's talk about why NPUR allows no financial reports about Adams Park and the Adams Park Recreation Center. Let's talk finance, NPUR. Let's talk about why you will allow no financial reports about what is happening at the Cascade Nature Preserve. Let's talk finance, NPUR. Let's talk about the NPU grant money, which was awarded to an Alfred White project, that same Alfred White, who is one of the NPUR 9. Let's talk finances, NPUR. Let's talk about the money that was given to Antonita Robinson to help protect people against the coronavirus. And let's talk about why so many masks were left over from last year. And let's talk about how the rest of that coronavirus money was used. Let's talk finance, NPUR. Let's talk about the money that was given to the Women's Employment Opportunity Project and Sherry Williams, another member of the NPUR 9.
Is that it, Ms. Kempson-Wright?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair, it was only one comment. I'm just confirming that we heard the entire comment, but I believe we did.
All right. Let us know if we did not.
Okay.
So we have 4 presentations on the printed agenda, but let's see if we'd like to do the following. Number 1, the COVID-19 funds report, and number 2, the general fund monthly revenue report had already been previously distributed. And so if there's an appetite to do so, we can dispense with the presentations, and members can be invited to ask any questions that they would like. The Department of Finance first quarter report, they will give that to us live. And the transparency update has been requested to be put off until next time. This is kind of a chief part of that update would be to tell us about a new software platform that's going to accomplish a lot of what that agency needs to do, and that is still going through the procurement process. So if it's all right with everyone, we can put that off. But before we get to those reports, we do have a lengthy agenda, and there are 2 members of the public who may have joined us today as they are up for appointments to the Audit Committee. And so if there's no objection, let's perhaps take those two first, and so that we can get them on their way. Is that all right with everyone?
The host has joined the conference.
All right, hearing no objections, let's go to H8 20C0132, a communication from Mayor Bottoms appointing Mr. Dargan Burns, Esquire, to serve as a member of the City of Atlanta Audit Committee. The appointment is for a term of 4 years. Is Mr. Burns with us today?
Yes, Dargan Burns is here. And just a point of clarification, the Esquire behind my name is a typo. I am not an attorney.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll demote you then on the final paper as requested. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you've come to be in this position.
Sure, certainly. I'm a 1980 graduate of Morehouse College, where I received a BA in accounting. I worked for 3 years with the Big 8 firm, Ernst & Winning, and subsequently started my own practice in conjunction with Jesse Simpson. And our practice has been in existence for well over 20 years, and we provide services to small and medium-sized business, as well as nonprofits and several governmental entities. Over the course of my 30-year career, I've worked with in the public sector as the controller for what many of you will remember to be the Empowerment Zone. And this was during the administration of Mayor Bill Campbell, when Judith Blackwell was the CFO. And Mary was the CFO for the Empowerment Zone. And I served as the controller, providing all of the monthly accounting services for the fund. Most recently, I've served as the accountant for the Atlanta-Fulton County Recreation Authority under the administration of Terry Stewart, wherein I would prepare the financial statements to be presented to the board. And those presentations were made by the finance chair, Michael Green. So over the course of the year, I've had several experiences in both public and private entities. My experience in working with the audit committee has been on the other side. When I was the controller and interim CFO for Morehouse College, I was responsible for making the presentations to the audit committee of the college. So I think I'm pretty versed in looking at the position from both sides of the table.
All right. Thank you. You are indeed well qualified. Questions or comments from committee members? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve.
Second, Matsukay.
All right, let's open that vote.
The vote is open.
Ms. Archibald?
I'm on the system now, thank you.
Oh, okay, great.
Though I was knocked off, this is Westmoreland.
Mr. Westmoreland, did you vote before you got knocked off, or do you need to voice vote?
I did not, and so I will voice vote in the affirmative.
Thank you. All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Burns, for your willingness to serve. This legislation will next proceed to the Committee on Council, which will meet during our final meeting of the year, which is December 7th, I believe. All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It takes us to the second of our communications. This is 2017. This is 20R4612, resolution by financial check to appoint Mr. Pinobi to the City of Atlanta Audit Committee as one of the 3 at-large members appointed appointed by the entire City Council said turn to begin upon approval of this resolution. And for other purposes, Mr. Pinovi is a veteran of this board. And Mr. Pinovi, are you with us today?
Yes, I am. Thank you for that compliment, I guess.
Well, and how long have you been serving?
Well, I haven't served since 2015. I think the bylaws say that I have to be off the board for 4 or 5 years. So I think I was on probably 5 or 6 years because I came on to finish off somebody else's term, and then I became chair, vice chair, and then chair.
Right. All right. Well, thank you for your willingness to re-up. Your experience will be most helpful. Any questions or comments or a motion regarding Mr. Pinovi? I will move approval.
Second, Westmoreland.
All right. There's no questions or comments. Let's open that vote, please. The vote is open. All right, motion carries unanimously. Mr. Pinovi, your paper will travel as well to Committee on Council, which will meet on December 7th during our full council meeting. All right?
Very well. Do I need to be there then for that too?
You do not.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, I'm good. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, boys.
All right. Now back up to presentations. So,
excuse me, Mr. Vice Chair?
Yeah.
I apologize. The system actually did cut off. We were only able to play 1 minute and 47 seconds of the comment, and if you would like, we could go ahead and just play it right now before we proceed to the first quarter report.
Yeah, good. Thank you for catching that.
Greetings to you, committee members and staff. A special greetings to you, citizens of Atlanta, who have tuned into these proceedings and are taking note of the degree to which public comments made by citizens are being honored or ignored. And Howard, Senior Advocate, Public Policy Analyst. Neighborhood Planning Unit R allows no committee reports, and especially no reports dealing with finance. Let's talk finance, NPUR. Let's talk about why NPUR allows no financial reports about Adams Park and the Adams Park Recreation Center. Let's talk finance, NPUR. Let's talk about why you will allow no financial reports about what is happening at the Cascade Nature Preserve. Let's talk finance, NPUR. Let's talk about the NPU grant money, which was awarded to an Alfred White project. That same Alfred White was one of the NPUR 9. Let's talk finances, NPUR. Let's talk about the money that was given to Antonita Robinson to help protect people against the coronavirus. And let's talk about why so many masks were left over from last year. And let's talk about how the rest of that coronavirus money was used. Let's talk finance, NPUR. Let's talk about the money that was given to the Women's Employment Opportunity Project and Sherry Williams, another member of the NPUR 9. And let's talk about how that event was not even held within the NPUR boundaries. Let's talk finance, NPUR. Let's talk about the municipal option sales tax and how citizens voted to pay taxes of 1% on what they spend, so the $4 billion Atlanta Watershed Management Program might one day be resolved and ended. Let's talk finance, NPUR. Let's talk about why Ricardo Jacobs is not allowed to give financial reports as a representative for the Campbellton Road Tax Allocation District. Let's talk finance, NPUR. Let's talk about why Ricardo Jacobs gives no reports on the Invest in Southwest Atlanta program, which has the potential to revive the Magic Johnson complex and the potential to bring back the S&S cafeteria, which was loved by senior citizens and others within NPUR. You already took a month-long vacation in June. Come back from your December vacation and let's talk finance on behalf of the citizens of NPUR. You, Antonita Robinson, you call us you Ricardo Jacobs, you Alfred White, you Annette Scott, you Allison Hathaway, you Sherry Williams, and your cohorts.
And did it cut off again?
No, that is the end of it.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you. Before we get to the presentations, I am just reading a press release announcing that the mayor has appointed Mr. John Keene as the city's chief operating officer, and I wonder if he is on the line. All right, apparently not.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, there you are, Mr. Keene. Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I definitely appreciate the support of council and the support of the mayor, and look forward to continuing to serve the city.
Well, and we stand behind you, which is both the good news and the bad news, depending on the situation. Any questions or comments? Any questions or comments for the COO? All right, Mr. Keene, get to work. All right, now, presentations. As remarked, the COVID-19 funds report has already been distributed, as has the general fund monthly revenue report. There's two ways we can go. We can, I'm sure the presenters are with us and they can perhaps quickly plow through the material, or we can reserve our time for such questions and comment as the members have for them. What's your pleasure, committee? Does anyone, let me ask it this way, does anyone have any questions or comments about the COVID-19 funds report? Thank you. Anyone with any questions about the general fund monthly revenue report?
Mr. Chair, this is Councilmember Matscott. I had a question on that.
Sure.
Yep. My question is, what do we expect the revenue to be for the full year, given the run rate that we're on, and how does that compare to the revenue that we budgeted? That's the first question.
And who here from Finance can speak to that?
I can, council member. This is CFO counsel. On the presentation that we actually show you today, council member, for the first quarter, we have the projected revenues throughout the rest of the fiscal year, if that would suffice. So that would be covered in our first quarter presentation.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, any more questions about the general fund monthly revenue report? If not, we will wait to learn more in Mr. Council's report, which is due up right now, covering the first quarter. Mr. Council, if you and your team are ready, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Shook. We would like to present the first quarter financial status report. We could include our quarterly report overview, as well as our governmental fund overview and proprietary fund overview, as well as our debt investment portfolio. So I'm going to pass it off to Deputy CFO Tina Wilson to walk us through this. Tina?
Ms. Wilson, I apologize. One second. We're trying to pull up the report. We pulled up the COVID-19 funds report in case there were questions that you all were able to answer during that time. We're getting ready to pull up the first quarter report. If you can give us 1 second so that we can be in sync with your presentation. One moment, we're almost ready. Ms. Wilson, we're ready for you.
Okay, great. Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Great. Okay, the Department of Finance will be presenting the first quarter 2021 financial status report. If we move to slide number 2, you'll see the agenda includes the quarterly report overview, the general fund revenues and expenses. We also have Mr. Keenan and Mr. Bartley to address additional budget balancing strategies you'll hear from. We will also cover the major enterprise funds and close out with debt and investment portfolios. Moving to slide 4, our first quarter report covers July through September 2020, and we provide a summary analysis of budget to actual performance, forecasting projected revenue and expenditure activities, as well as explanation of variances, and identify any significant issues that may impact year-end performance. We also account for legislative items that may be in process. Moving to slide 6. Prior to going into the details, we just wanted to provide a summary of some key points, many of which you have seen on the revenue side as it relates to the monthly update that we provide. So these could look fairly familiar. The first quarter revenues are lower primarily because of the timing of property taxes. They were due in the second quarter and not in the first quarter as you would have seen last year and in prior years. Most major categories are tracking to meet their forecasts, such as property tax and sales tax are performing slightly better than our projections. But there are some revenue categories that are at risk of not meeting the budget forecast. As you will recall, those are the alcoholic beverage taxes, fines and penalties, and hotel-motel taxes greatly impacted due to COVID. So the projected revenue shortfall associated with these risks is $18.7 million of the revenue budget. On the expense side, as of the first quarter, our actual expenses are under budget by $26 million. However, this is mainly due to the timing of expenses. There are many expense categories that are projected to end the year under budget, but there are a couple of expense categories that are at risk of ending the year over budget, and those include overtime and employee benefits, as well as fleet-related charges. The projected overrun associated with these risks are $2.4 million. At the end of the first quarter, with the implementation of budget balancing strategies, we are tracking to budget. Next slide, I will transition to our revenue chief, Ms. Daniel.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So slide 7 is the FY21 general fund revenue projection, and it begins with the FY21 budget of $680 million by major category, which includes a $34 million supplement from fund balance and a $7.3 million supplement from planning committed fund balance. Absent these fund balance supplements, the general fund revenue from normal city operations is $639 million. The first quarter, July through September actuals were $75.9 million, which represents 11.9% of the total $639 million budget. Projections for the remaining 9 months of the fiscal year, October through June, total $544 million, which results in a FY21 year-end forecast of $620 million, or $18.8 million less than the $639 million total FY21 general fund budget, which is less the fund balance supplement. As a percentage, the shortfall compared to budget represents a 2.9% decrease. The material revenue deficiencies are a function of the COVID-related financial traumas in alcohol beverage, other revenues, fines and penalties, and hotel motel tax categories. Alcohol beverage, of course, is directly related to COVID-induced restaurant closures to protect the public health of the community. This entertainment industry is especially impacted by COVID related to social distancing mandates and a consumer health concerns. Fines and penalties is directly related to COVID-induced closure of city courts and lower traffic violations and parking enforcement. Hotel motel is directly related to depressed demand stemming from COVID-19 and the erosion of the business, convention, and tourism activity, which has reduced demand, hotel occupancy, and thus results in lower room rates. And finally, other revenues is a category marked by the infrequency or unpredictable timing of receipts, most of which are market-based in this analysis. For instance, the interest allocation for the cash pool, interest earnings, of course, are affected by interest rates. Lower interest rates and coupled with the decreased revenues have reduced the cash pool interest rate allocation and interest earnings. Year-end projections based on first quarter actuals are based on two primary assumptions. The first is that the first quarter revenue trend will continue through the remainder of the fiscal year. Thus, declines will continue in COVID-impacted revenues such as alcohol revenue, municipal court revenues, and market-based other revenues that are impacted by interest rates, and finally, hotel motel revenues. Property tax revenues will be largely and materially unaffected by COVID. As you can see on slide 7, the total projected revenues for year-end equals the FY21 funded budget. We do not expect, again, any material impact as a function of COVID to property taxes. As of the first quarter, the clear and present risk, as we've discussed previously, reside in alcohol beverage, fines and penalties, hotel motel category, all of which are impacted by COVID to a higher degree than anticipated. And this concludes the general fund revenue projection, and I will yield to Mr. Bell to discuss expenses.
Thank you. Is Mr. Bell muted?
One moment, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry about that. I couldn't get in. Again, this is Charles Bell. So if we look at the slide as it's saying, the expenses, I think would be number 8. I'm looking at my screen, I'm still seeing the slide. The revenue projection. I'll just proceed. But want to have the opportunity to address the June fund expenditure budget projection. Here we're looking at our expense performance, and we're looking at it via major category of expenses. The total funded budget is $680.7 million, and we've spent through the first quarter $134.2 million, and so
Mr. Bell is quite muffled.
Hello?
Mr. Chair, it sounds like Mr. Bell is quite muffled. I don't know.
Is that better?
That's much better.
Okay. I was just saying that the total funded budget there is $680.7 million, and the amount spent through the first quarter is $144.2 million. And so when you look at the performance through the first quarter, it's 21.2%. So we're about 4% to the good. As we slide on over and we look at projected expenses, we think we'll spend another $539 million and get us to 683.16 toward the end of the year, which would take us to a deficit position at year end of about $2.4 million. That deficit position is most contributed to by our performance, or expected performance in personnel services, as well as interfund interdepartmental charges. When we look at personnel services, the primary contributors to that $10.38 million deficit that we are expecting basically comes from overruns driven by our police and fire situations. We're talking about overtime. We're also looking at group insurance increasing through the second half of the year. And then, of course, as we look down to the interfund interdepartmental charges, we're basically looking at a deficit performance primarily generated by our fleet repair and maintenance. And so, having said that, you'll be able to tie into this a little bit more as we go to the next slide, where we look at our expenses based on a departmental basis. So as you go to the next slide, which we list all of the departments there down the left side of the screen, running from City Council at the top down to Department of Grants and Community Development to the bottom. You'll see again the $680.7 million funded budget, the $144.2 million expended through the first quarter at that 21.2% clip. Again, we're looking at a 2.4% projected deficit at this time. And as we kind of go back toward the top there, I think we have about maybe 10 departments that we think will be in a deficit position toward year end. In that first one, executive offices, as we take a look at that, we've got a situation pretty much in personnel where we're forecasting a deficit about $1.6 million, 1.8 in extra help, 1.1 in overtime, and of course they have some small offsets. As we go down to the next department, we're looking at AIM, information management there. We're looking at what we think would be a $2 million deficit at year end. This is primarily driven by contracts. We've got several to mention, Palo Alto, SmartNet, other situations dealing with Kronos, on-call services, Covendis as we refer to it, and Azure. And for the most part, we have a few others, but for the most part, that $2 million deficit is projected based on those contracts. The law department has let us know that they have about 3 contract or study type issues, and these were items that came about after the adoption of the budget. And so that is driving pretty much all of the deficit as is expected at that point for the end of the year at about $456,000. The Department of Finance, we are looking at about a $607,000 deficit right now. We do think that we will have that smoothed out. Overwhelming majority of that are bank charges, and as we get to the end of actually this month, I think we will have the reallocations done, and the chargebacks will go to departments throughout the city, and that should take care of that outlook there. Human resources is minor. Fire, probably the largest one that we're reporting, $4 million. What we have here, about $2.4 million in personnel type expenses, a little less than $700 in supplies, and then fleet is just about $900,000. You'll see our footnotes out to the side. Overtime is the primary reason for the deficit as we look at the personnel portion of that. Police, looking at an estimated $3.3 million deficit. Overwhelming majority of that is in personnel. Looking at about $3.1 million deficit in salaries sworn. Overwhelming majority will come in what we're looking at is we know overtime, but also the benefits as we make it through the year. And we mentioned on the previous slide that the benefits will be going up in the second half of the year. Turning our attention now to the Department of Solicitor. Here we do have some deficits there in forecasted salaries and benefits, and offset slightly in contract services and extra help. And this is pretty much, as we talk about the personnel instance of this, carryover of personnel costs to support community prosecution initiatives. The next one of real note, I guess we can skip on down to the Department of Transportation. As we look at that, and we probably have a little bit more work to do with that. We had transfers, as you know, the department. This is his first year, and also getting personnel from Department of Public Works. We've got that in. We think we may have an issue with the benefits there applied incorrectly, but we have been in contact with their commissioner, their department head, and there is a great possibility as we continue to review this that we'll have more information or better information in terms of what we're looking at as a $1.4 million deficit, get that cleaned up, and we'll have a new report on that as we talk about it through mid-year. Mr. Rowan asked me to make sure that I mention, not necessarily relative to this report, but he's noting that he's got what he expects to be about $2.85 million in unforeseen projects resulting from the transition of DPW, and we'll be dealing with that in the coming months of the year. Having said that, I think I've gone through the material deficit positions. I'd be happy to answer any questions should you have them, but I do want to note that the upcoming slides will be handled by Mr. John King and Mr. Matt Bartley as they talk about efficiency efforts that are expected to reduce this deficit throughout the rest of the year.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Mr. King and Mr. Bartley. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Council members, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to cover a couple of scenarios related to some planning that we have done in conjunction with finance to identify budget balancing strategies. Given what you've just heard from the finance team related to our revenues and our expenses, it's obviously important for us to be thinking about what are the ways to make sure that we remain on target for this year's budget. And so we've done that, and I'm going to talk about two scenarios given a key assumption that relates to the coronavirus relief funds and our FEMA reimbursement option. Afterwards, Matthew Bartley is going to talk about some work that his team has put in place related to identifying with departments additional strategies and actions that we should be taking in order to make sure that we are ultimately finding meaningful savings while seeking to not make cuts to critical services. But first, this first scenario, what I've deemed Plan A, assumes that we do not get an extension of the coronavirus relief funds and of the FEMA emergency designation. And that's important because without that extension, there are some funds that we do believe will be shifted into expenses that have been related to COVID-19 and offset those expenses for public safety, public health expenditures. We've laid out 6 strategies here that we believe will allow us to balance the budget. $2 million related to utility savings, additional utility savings, not within the projections. $1 million related to additional facility maintenance savings, not within the current projections. $500,000 related to training and travel expenditures that, again, we see as being additional savings beyond what is in the current projections. $12.4 million of additional coronavirus relief fund allocations, and $7 million of FEMA reimbursement. And then finally, if needed, and as mentioned in the slide, these are in order of planned implementation. If needed, we would tighten further related to some of the measures that we've already put in place related to hiring and our current focus on mission critical hires, and we would further tighten to identify ways to reduce or find savings on the personnel side for another $1 million. These strategies would get us to a balanced budget and actually a little bit beyond that. If we go to the next scenario, which I've called here Plan B, this does assume that we get an extension to the ability to deploy our coronavirus relief funds, as well as the extension related to the emergency declaration for FEMA, which both of these things are potential given the fact that it's clear that the pandemic does go beyond the current deadline for those, which is the end of this year, December 30th. And with that scenario, while we will have less funding and savings related to, or less of a strategy related to the coronavirus relief fund allocations, you can see that that decreases from 12.4 down to 1.5 million. We do get the benefit of the additional FEMA reimbursements going into the second half of the fiscal year. And so that FEMA reimbursement piece does allow us to help cover the expenses that we projected related to some key items that are eligible under FEMA. And so those are really the two main scenarios that we've been working through to understand how do we make sure that we are on target for a balanced budget in FY21. I'm going to turn it over to Matthew, who's going to talk about some of the additional work that the team has been doing with the department.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon, council members. Matthew Bartley with the innovation team. So, as John mentioned, one of the other things we wanted to touch on in this section of the presentation is a process that is focused on FY22 that we first talked about with you all in the summer when we were working together on the budget. This is a process we've stood up, as John mentioned, to support the departments that report to the administration to identify efficiencies and additional savings heading into the next fiscal year. So on slide 12, you'll see listed out a few of these specific areas of focus that we have been working with the department on. Those relate to technology contracts, process improvement, overtime reduction, and capacity utilization. These are some of the areas that the departments are looking to see where we can find savings. In terms of next steps, departments are tracking to make recommendations to the COO this month. And the goal of this exercise really is to identify meaningful savings that we can reflect in the FY22 budget with minimal impact on service delivery.
So Roosevelt, with that, we will turn it back over to you and your team.
Thanks, John. Ms. Wilson, will you pick it back up, please?
Sure thing, thank you. If we'll move to slide 14, we have an overview of the major enterprise funds, starting with aviation. Their FY21 funded budget revenues and expenses were $370 million. Their projected revenue through the end of the year is at $369 million. A variance of about $450,000. They're tracking to pretty much meet the projected revenues at this point in time. They're still obviously very impacted by passenger travel during COVID and consumer confidence around traveling. So as we move further throughout the fiscal year, we'll have in the second quarter, of course, the benefit of having some holiday travel as well, and seeing if there will be significant uptick in passenger travel. The expense side, they are projected at $367 million, which is slightly under their budget of $2.4, mainly savings in contractual services. For Watershed, their revenues and expense funded budget was $569 million. Their projections for year end, their revenues are at $593, which is favorable by $24 million. They're experiencing the benefit of the sales tax in most, as well as the general fund saw the benefit in loss as a favorable variance. On the expense side, they're trending to end the year at $500 million, which is a savings of $69 million. And of course, they will utilize those savings to fund their capital programs. The solid waste fund, their revenues were budgeted at $66 million. Their projected revenues are, at this point, still at $66 million. Their expenses are projected to be slightly over budget at $69 million, and that's mainly due to some emergency contracts that were due to some of the Hurricane Zeta that came through. With that, we'll move on to debt and investment, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Johnny Watson.
Good afternoon, this is Johnny Watson. Can we turn the slide, please? All right, going through the debt and investment portfolio, we have the slide in front of us that shows the overall cash and investment portfolio on the next slide. look at the investment portfolio, we have the slide in front of us. Right now, we have about $2.46 billion of cash and investments in the portfolio that's covered across major liquidity categories in the bond market. We've increased our net income about $72 million by investing in securities that have above average coupons, but we've had to pay up more to get that coupon income given the market conditions. Yields remain very low and tight in this marketplace, given that everyone is looking to purchase fixed income investments for their safety. So the overall yield impact has come down, as you can see, from the previous year, from about 2% down to, at this point, below 1%. So yields continue to come down, and we continue to have to pay up a little bit more to get the coupon income that we've been used to getting. Can you go to the next slide, please? In the next slide, you'll see the overview of the liability side of the balance sheet for the city, as well as the various enterprise funds. In that slide, you'll see that we've reduced the overall debt profile slightly over time due to amortization of principal amounts that continue to get paid down. We continue also to look for refinancing opportunities as they come around. We are prevented from doing advanced refundings, but when bonds are in the call period where they can be called, we do immediately look to see what the savings will be to exercise those calls and lower the interest expense for the debt portfolio and for the enterprise as a whole. To date, we've had about $114 million in savings due to some of the refunded debt, I should say. And the debt portfolio is sitting right now at about $6.8 billion, but it's down about $431 million due to amortization. Please turn to the next slide. In that slide, you'll get a chance to see that overall our debt ratings from the various credit rating agencies have continued to hold in here. We still have AA+, AA2 at different marketplaces between Moody's and S&P. We did experience a downgrade at one of the enterprise funds this year, and that was due to the COVID pandemic. The rating agency in question went across the board and pretty much hit all of the facilities and revenue bonds backed by car rentals, taxes, and fees across the board by a couple of notches. So we were downgraded to BBB+, which is still investment grade, from a single A rating, A2, A+ at Moody's, subsequently in the previous quarter. And I continue to believe that we'll still be under watch, but I think that most of the rating agencies have pretty much gone through their analysis and seen where things are and haven't seen a lot of entities experience a lot of problems, so we should probably hold in here for now. And that's it from debt and investments.
Thank you, Johnny. That concludes the presentation for finance, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Colleagues, questions? While I'm awaiting for some speakers to show up, I've got a couple. You've answered my questions about the ratings agencies. I've got a question about the hazard bonus pay. I have heard anecdotally from several employees in a couple of different departments that there have been problems with the flow of those payments. Is there anyone here who can put us at ease about that? Or if there is a problem, let us know what it is.
Yeah, so this is, hello?
Yes?
Okay. Yeah, I'm curious to know what the problem is, Councilmember. You know, we make those payments once a month, and that's out of the first pay period of the month. You know, but the people that actually do receive them, you know, are people that have actually been relegated to receive them. but there is a need, I think, every pay period to refine that based on some of the functions that some of the employees are actually performing. But there are guidelines in terms of who would actually qualify. But if there's any particular employees that seem to have issues, we would be more than glad to take a look at what's going on with them to provide them with some clarity.
Yeah. Okay. So you have not been the recipient of complaints that they haven't gotten us our money.
No. Okay. We've been very consistent with our payments.
All right, I'll follow up on that and get back to you.
Okay.
Is there a hiring freeze for non-essential employees in place?
Councilmember, this is John King. Yes, our mission-critical employees is the focus of any hiring.
Okay, thank you. Just lastly, I mean, we're undergoing a vastly unwanted experiment, but one that shouldn't be wasted in that, I'm very curious to know if we're tracking and coming away with data about, going forward, might there be some tasks or functions that work better from a remote standpoint than the customary way? Do we have any insight into employee efficiency during this weird time? Are we saving money? Are we spending money? Is it more money, or does that depend on the activity? My general question is anyone sort of benchmarking all this for future reference?
Councilmember, I think we have some good examples of where we are doing that and doing it well. There are certain departments, certainly, that, just the nature of their work, we're able to track metrics related to productivity more easily. One example of that is our call center with 311. We moved that to a completely remote call center, and we have seen benefits productivity-wise to the employees being able to work remotely. And so each department, as we've laid out reopening plans, each department has gone through an evaluation to understand both from the standpoint of what are employees' preferences, and then looking at it from the standpoint of how does that compare to what we're seeing productivity-wise, to make decisions about, as we move to a phase where we are reopening public facilities to all employees, how will that department then choose to have telework arrangements in place? And so we've been working as a consolidated team with finance, HR, law, AIM, and others to put in place updated policies related to telework, so that for those departments and employees who think it's in the best interest of the employees in the city to do so, they're able to make that choice.
All right, thank you. Is there any other speakers here? I'm not seeing anyone on my screen. Speak up if you have a question. All right, I will just conclude with just an observation. We've all been through financial straits before here that the city has had to buffet. I will say that I think this time around, and the diagnostics and the people at the controls have hit a whole other level. And I just want you to know I appreciate it. I feel a lot better about things than I would otherwise. I appreciate y'all's buttons. All right, thank you. Now, that concludes that. The transparency update will come back to us next time, and that takes us, I believe, to our 7 first reads.
Item number 1 is 20-1756, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to pay outstanding invoices in the amount of $370,298.19 for services performed during a 90-day extension of the agreement to Saab Census Corporation for FC 4730 Airport Surface Management System at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport in accordance with Section 2-1206 of Article 10 Procurement and Real Estate Code, City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from the account numbers listed herein. Item number 2 is 20-1757, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the City of Atlanta to waive the competitive procurement source selection provisions contained in Section 2-1187 of Article 10 Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances and authorize the mayor or her designee to execute the appropriate documents to extend the term of the contract FC 6851 Quality Customer Service with AirServe AETC joint venture on a month-to-month basis for a period not to exceed 6 months and an amount not to exceed $3 million and 0 cents to continue to provide quality customer service management services at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. Item number 3 is 20-1758, an ordinance waiving the competitive source selection requirements contained in Section 2-1187, Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, as well as any other conflicting code provisions, authorizing the mayor or her designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into a lease agreement with United Parcel Service Incorporated for cargo warehouse facility office suites, employee parking, and aircraft parking positions at 1270 Woolman Place in the North Cargo Expansion Area at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. Item number 4 is 20-1759, an ordinance to authorize the carryover of up to 20 days of SS annual leave accumulation through and including December 31st, 2021 for all city employees. Item number 5 is 20-1760, an ordinance authorizing the mayor or her designee to execute Amendment number 10 for FC 7148, Citywide Security Guard Services with Dynamic Security Incorporated, to extend the term of the agreement on a month-to-month basis for a period up to 5 months, effective January 1st, 2021 through May 30th, 2021, to include the sites of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management, the Department of Corrections, the Department of Parks and Recreation, Atlanta City Municipal Court, and the Department of Watershed Management, to add additional funding in an amount not to exceed $832,135.00 in accordance with Section 2-1163, Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code. Item number 6 is 20-1761, an ordinance authorizing the mayor or her designee to execute Amendment number 1 for FC 9700 BCRS Software and Technical Support Update with International Systems Strategies Incorporated to extend the term of the contract on a month-to-month basis for a period up to 6 months beginning January 19, 2021 on behalf of the Department of Finance and an amount not to exceed $40,083.00 in accordance with Section 2-1163, subsection C of Article 10 of the Procurement and Real Estate Code. Item number 7 is an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or her designee to accept the conversion of Astra Group Incorporated to Astra Group LLC, being a party to the Astra Road Fox UPC joint venture for FC 9445, to enter to one or more change orders for FC 9445, construction manager at risk, for the Upper Proctor Creek Capacity Relief Project, Rodney Cook Senior Park, a historic Vine City with Astra Road Fox UPC joint venture on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management in accordance with Section 2-1163, subsection C of Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, authorizing time for additional construction services at no additional cost, extending the term of the agreement retroactively beginning July 3rd, 2020 to a date no later than December 31st, 2020, and for the purposes.
Thank you. Nicely done. That takes us, and those will come back to us next year. That takes us to our regular agenda, Section H, and we have dispatched with numbers 8 and 9. That takes us to ordinances for second read, and I will make a motion to bring forward a substitute.
Second, Westmoreland.
All right, let's open the vote on bringing forward the substitute, and this comes right after I'll take that vote. Could you read the substitute caption, please?
Yes, sir.
All right, the vote's open. All right, unanimously, the substitute is before us. Ms. Gibson, right?
This is a substitute ordinance by Finance Executive Committee to ratify services rendered in connection with special procurement agreement, Granicus website customization, Maintenance, hosting, and licensing support with Granicus SAS LLC from November 29th, 2019 through September 30th, 2020, and to authorize the Chief Financial Officer to pay outstanding invoices for services rendered in an amount not to exceed $20,873.85 on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management in accordance with Section 21163, Subsection C, Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code. All contracted work to be charged and paid from the accounts listed. And for the purposes, and Mr. Vice Chair, the substitute removes the small purchase special procurement title, revises the caption and body to include that the Chief Information Officer seeks to ratify services as well as authorization for the Chief Financial Officer to pay outstanding invoices.
All right, thank you. And it's Ty Hayes presenting, and it's so is she with us.
Hello, this is Ty Hayes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. This is Ty Hayes. This ordinance is to pay outstanding invoices that were incurred while we were in the process of renewing the contract. So this is to pay a few months of past due payments.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Seeing none, I will move approval on substitute.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
All right, it is carried on substitute unanimously. Thank you. Item 11 is an ordinance by Finance Exec to establish, a trust fund for the revenues generated by the vending kiosk program to be named the Vending Kiosk Trust Fund, to apply these funds toward kiosk maintenance and other administrative activities to expand small business opportunities and for other purposes. And there was backup information that had been previously distributed. And I believe that we have Mr. Humphreys here on the line to answer such questions as members may have. Are there any? Seeing none, I'll move approval.
Second.
The vote is open.
All right, item carries unanimously, so ordered. That takes us to item.
Mr. Shook, can I ask a
12.
question?
Oh, of course.
I'm sorry, this is Councilman. I'm wearing two hats today, so if I'm in and out, I apologize.
Go ahead.
Is this the kiosk program that came forth, Santana, from CHS?
Yes.
So we moved the fourth or so recommendation because with the conditions that Mr. King would actually interact with every council member. I had questions about it, and he has not reached out yet. So we moved the fourth on conditions that with no recommendation. So I'm just letting you all know because we wasn't clear about the kiosk. Mr. Westmoreland, are you there? Are you validating what I'm saying?
I am here.
Is this the same one?
I don't think this is the same paper. I don't remember. I don't think this came to CDHS yesterday.
Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe it was public safety, but yeah, it was public safety. I'm sorry. Santana, is this the same paper that came from public safety?
No, it is not. This is on our consent agenda. It's not a dual referral. This is only to establish the actual trust fund for the vending kiosk program. There is a separate item that you're referencing.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure
it is related to it, but this is only to establish the trust fund, so it is related.
Okay, but it's not before this committee today. Is it before this paper I'm talking about that came from public safety? Is it before this committee today? I'll talk to Corin. Let me not hold y'all up. I'll get facts on that and come back. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. There are two papers. I'm sorry for any confusion. So this just establishes the trust fund into which the money will flow, and when motion's been made, seconded, and then the vote's been carried. So that takes us now to number 12-20-0-17-13, ordinance by Finance Exec, authorizing mayor or designee to enter into change order number 3 for the SC indicated construction manager at risk services for a water supply program, phase 1 with Peace Russell, a joint venture, on behalf of Watershed Management in accordance with Section 21163, subsection C of Article 10, Procurement Real Estate Code of the State of Atlanta, Code of Ordinances authorizing time for additional construction services at no additional cost, extending the term of the agreement by 312 days retroactively beginning February 17 of this year through December 31st of this year, and for other purposes. Mr. Baccaro, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon, council members. This is Rob Baccaro, Department of Watershed Management. The purpose of this legislation is to request authorization to extend the term of agreement for FC 788 for PC Russell joint venture for the additional time associated with increased concrete lining and the accompanying modified contact grouting behind the lining for the tunnel boring machine tunnel. The term of agreement will thereby be extended by 312 days retroactively beginning February the 17th through December the 31st of this year. This legislation will allow time required for the elongated testing, startup and commissioning of the water pumping systems due to a reduction in raw water availability earlier this year to fill the tunnel and the quarry facilities and the pandemic travel restrictions. Additionally, the change order will allow the contractor to complete the construction of the liner plate tunnel, connection of the Chattahoochee water treatment plant to the raw water supply tunnel and storage facility. Just wanted to emphasize there's no additional cost associated with this change order. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take.
Yeah, Mr. Baccaro, what challenges did this project encounter?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that we had is with tunneling work that when we're working 400 feet underground, it always takes longer than anticipated. One of the issues that we had was that originally we assumed a smaller percentage for lining of the tunnel. We have to line sections of the tunnel where the rock material is not as good, so we ended up with a higher amount of lining. So that was, I think, 60% of the tunnel ended up being lined. Early at one point we had some issues with sort of vapor issues inside the tunnel, so we had to stop work and then address that. And so those were a couple of the main things that took us a little bit longer. And then earlier this year, when we started filling the quarry, we couldn't fill at the same volume that we originally intended. We had to go slower. We were restricted by how much we could be filled at any given time. So those were some of the main things. If there's any other, I can't think of anything else, but those are the key things.
What was the original project budget?
I don't recall that. I'll find out and I can get back to you on that. I haven't got that number in front of me.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments, committee members? I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, if there's nothing else, let's please open that vote.
The vote is open.
All right, item is approved unanimously. That takes us to item 1320-1714, ordinance by Finance and Check authorizing the CFO to establish a capital fund for the Building of Enterprise Assets Management to accept building rental revenues associated with office and warehouse space occupied by the Department of Watershed Management at 2 City Plaza, also known as 72 Marietta Street, pursuant to the Memorandum of Understanding that occupied space to establish that 50% of the revenue received from the Watershed Management Department shall be deposited into the accounts listed to expend fees from the revenue received for the general upkeep and maintenance of 2 City Plaza on behalf of Enterprise Assets Management, and that revenue received by the Department of Watershed Management for FY21 shall be transferred into the newly created capital fund beginning in FY21 and for other purposes at the department's request. I will move that this item be held.
Second.
All right, if there's no questions, let's open the procedural vote on the motion to hold.
The vote is open.
All right, item is held. That takes us to item 1420-1715, and I believe we have to substitute, correct, Ms. Kempson, right?
Yes, that is correct. If we can have a motion to bring the substitute forward.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Second.
That's been first and seconded. Let's vote. Vote is open.
Vote is open.
After which, Ms. Kempson Wright, please sound the caption. All right, substitute is unanimously before us, and the caption reads,
A substitute ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or her designee to enter into Amendment Number 1 for FC 8076 arbitrage rebate calculation services with Hilltop Securities Asset Management, LLC, to extend the term of the contract on a month-to-month basis for a period up to 12 months, retroactively effective April 28, 2020 through April 27, 2021, on behalf of the Department of Finance to provide arbitrage rebate calculation services for the Department of Aviation, General Fund, Department of Watershed Management, tax allocation districts, and other portfolios in accordance with Section 21163 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, an amount not to exceed $52,345.00. All contract work to be charged can pay from various funds listed and for other purposes, and this substitute adds all accounts in Section 2.
All right, thank you. Mr. Watson.
Yes, sir. This is for the extension of the existing contract. We are going through an RFP process as we speak, and we need to extend this term with Hilltop, who performs this needed calculation. It tells how much we need to refund back to the federal government for any interest earned above our cost of funding. So Hilltop performs these calculations, and we need them to continue to do so.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none, I will make the motion to approve as substitute.
Second.
All right, let's open that vote.
Vote is open.
All right, item is unanimously approved on substitute. Thank you. That takes us to item 15, which is 2017-16. Ordinance by Finance Check authorizing the CFO to create the Series 2028 Airport General Revenue Refunding Bonds, number 5545, and Series 2020B General Airport Revenue Refunding Bond Fund 5546 to amend the FY21 budget by adding to anticipations appropriations bond proceeds in the aggregate principal amount of $238,530,000 for the Airport General Revenue Funding Bond Series 2020A and $126,700,000 $70,000 for the Airport General Revenue Refunding Bond Series 2020B and for other purposes. And this merely establishes the needed accounts, correct, Finance?
That is correct.
All right, are there any questions or comments? I will move approval.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open.
All right, that stands unanimously approved. Item 16 is 2017-17, ordinance by finance check, amending the fiscal year 2021 general fund budget by anticipating and appropriating $474,593 for receipt of insurance reimbursement funds related to the March 2018 cyber attack and for other purposes. And I do have a question. Are we expecting any more insurance payments? And what's the total? Well, I guess the total to date is, it says right here, $8,388,000. Are we expecting other checks?
Councilmember, this is, can you hear me? This is CFO, Council.
Yeah,
okay, I thought that Jerry DeLoach, our risk manager, I know he was probably trying to get on, but I think this actually, if I'm not mistaken, finalizes what we actually have outstanding when it comes to cyber, from the cyber attack.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll move approval.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, let's open that vote. Vote is open. Ayes, 0 nays. The ayes have it. Number 17 is 2017-18, ordinance by finance check, authorizing the CFO to amend the fiscal year 2021 budget by adding to anticipations appropriation bond proceeds in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $525 million in connection with the City of Atlanta Water and Wastewater Revenue Refunding Bond Series 2020 and for other purposes. And I believe we need a substitute, do we not? If so, I will
yes.
Or has it already been, or do we need to substitute it?
We need to substitute it.
All right, I'll move to bring the substitute forward.
Second.
All right, the vote's open. Section right, is the caption different?
Yes, it is different.
All right, if you could read it, please, when we tally the vote.
Okay.
Which has been tallied unanimously. Go ahead.
It's a substitute ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the fiscal year 2021 budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations fund proceeds and the aggregate principal amount of $504,590,000 and no cents in connection with the City of Atlanta Water and Wastewater Revenue Refunding Fund Series 2020 and for other purposes.
All right, thank you. Finance.
Yes, this is related to the recent refunding deal that we did for the Department of Watershed less than a month ago.
Indeed. Questions or comments? Seeing none, I will move approval as substituted.
Second.
All right, let's open that vote.
The vote is open.
All right, it is unanimously approved on substitute. Thank you. That takes us to 18, which is 2017-27, ordinance by Ms. Boone, authorizing the mayor or designee to execute amendment number 1 for the FC indicated insurance brokerage and consulting services with USI Insurance Services formerly Wells Fargo Insurance Services USA, on behalf of the Department of Finance to provide insurance, brokerage, and risk management consulting services to the City of Atlanta, excluding areas specific to Department of Aviation in the amount of $17,500 per month, in accordance with the section listed in the Procurement and Real Estate Code, with all contracted work being charged to and paid from the account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. And I believe we need an amendment. But first, let's hear the presentation on the paper, if we can, and then also have the proposed amendment described. Do we have a presenter queued up?
Yes, we're unmuting Mr. Deloach now.
Thank you. Okay.
Good afternoon. This is Jerry Deloach, Director of the Office of Enterprise Risk Management. This paper is seeking authorization to enter into a month-to-month agreement for 6 months for our brokerage services for the insurance program and risk management consulting program for the city of downtown. We are in the process of doing our RFP and held a pre-bid conference on yesterday.
And what would the proposed amendment accomplish?
To add the language not to exceed 6 months in both the caption and in the body of the legislation.
Okay. As is currently before us.
Correct.
All right, I'll go ahead and move approval of the amendment.
Second.
All right, if there's nothing else, let's open the vote on the amendment.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote?
Please vote. The amendment carries unanimously, and now we'll move approval of the paper as amended.
Okay.
The vote is open.
Vote is open. All right, item carries. Thank you. Items approved as amended. That takes us to number 19, which is 20-017-28, and I will make a motion to bring forward the substitute.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote and bring forward the substitute.
The vote is open.
I did see unanimously before us. Ms. Kempson-Wright, could you do the honors?
An ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone and substituted by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or her designee to execute Amendment Number 2 for FC 8100B Insurance Brokerage and Consulting Services with Willis Insurance Services of Georgia to extend the term of the agreement on a month-to-month basis for a period up to 6 months effective December 16, 2020 through June 16, 2021. On behalf of the Department of Finance to provide insurance brokerage and risk management consulting services to the Department of Aviation and the Department of Finance Office of Enterprise Risk Management, including the owner-controlled insurance program, administrative services, in the amount of $420,870.66 per month for a total not to exceed amount of $2,525,223.96. in accordance with Section 21163, Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code. All contracted work should be charged and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
All right, Mr. Deloach, is this you again?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. This particular amendment here is related to the insurance and brokerage and consulting services of the Department of Aviation and our owner-controlled insurance program at Hartsville-Jackson. It also includes the amendment included language to include appropriations for the consultant service we're receiving related to COVID-19. We did a preview conference on yesterday, and so that's why we're asking for a month-to-month basis until we can complete that process.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee? If not, I will move approval on substitute.
Second.
The vote is open.
All right, items unanimously approved on substitute. Taking us to item 20, which is 2017-31, an ordinance by Ms. Oaks to amend the code sections indicated of the Small Business Enterprise Program and for the Equal Business Opportunity Program and Ordinance 1556 to extend the expiration date of said programs from December 31 of this year to December 31 of next, and for other purposes. This regards the delivery of our the studies disparity studies that we periodically have to do. Who's presenting?
Mr. Chair, we just got an email stating that Deputy COO Justin Johnson, along with a few other Commissioner for Dean, Mr. Santil, and Major Johnson should be on the call to speak to this.
All right. Gentlemen, it's dealer's choice. I'm sure we're all curious in getting a better understanding of why this is being pushed back a year.
Thank you, Councilman Research, members of the committee. Justin Johnson, Deputy Chief Operating Officer. I seen a message earlier today, and you should have it in your packet, so it's clarifying a little bit more after the merit of this paper. So the Department of Enterprise and Asset Management.
Mr. Johnson, you're a little muffled. Mr. Johnson, you're a little muffled. Can you speak more directly into the phone?
Okay, can you hear me a little bit better now?
Yes, that's better.
Okay, sounds good. As I was saying, so the Department of Enterprise and Asset Management, they are the custodian of the citywide security contract. And when the legislation was originally introduced back this summer, we left off unintentionally the Department of Corrections. But what this paper actually is doing is retroactively covering costs associated with augmented security services for Grady Hospital, not ACDC. So that's what this legislation is, and it's just covering those costs retroactively, which we should have captured this summer, but this is just a correction of that.
Okay, that's a great presentation, but for a different paper.
Mr. Chair, this is John King. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I believe the Chief Procurement Officer, Martin Clark, is on. He'll speak to this paper, and you are correct. Deputy CO Johnson will speak to the other paper that is up on the agenda.
Thank you.
Greetings and good afternoon. This is Chief Procurement Officer Martin Clark. Yes, Councilman Shook, this paper is requesting time to complete our disparity study. The Equal Business Opportunity Program, along with the Small Business Opportunity Program, was started by Mayor Jackson to combat discriminatory contracting practices. The historic program that served as the basis for the federal disadvantaged business program that's helped create a very robust business environment here in Atlanta. It's attracted businesses from all over the country to relocate to Atlanta. And per the city code, the city of Atlanta cannot be a passive participant in discrimination. the EBO programs require that the city look at socioeconomic data to establish a statistical predicate of either underutilization or overutilization in our contracting practices. And these studies, which involve professionals from economists to lawyers and to other experts, will go through our procurement, finance, IT, and other agencies to collect massive amounts of data to establish either underutilization or overutilization. Unfortunately, quite a bit of data still requires hard copies of documents and information, and unfortunately, the pandemic has frustrated the process of completing this part of the data retrieval. So this paper asks for an extension for the EBO ordinance so that we can complete a thorough and accurate study. And as you may have known, the legal cases require that we periodically, just about every 3 to 5 years.
Line unmuted. Line muted.
Did we lose Mr. Clark?
Line unmuted.
My apologies, I got muted. But yes, just to finish it off, yes, we are asking for an extended amount of time to accurately complete this study, sir.
All right. Well, the data is terribly important. It's voluminous, sheds a lot of light on kind of where we are relative to what we're trying to accomplish. I'm sure we all want to see these results. Questions, comments from the committee? I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, let's open that vote.
Vote is open.
All right, it carries unanimously. Thank you. That takes us to item 201732, and I will move to bring forward a substitute.
Second.
All right, let's open that vote on bringing forward a substitute.
Line muted.
All right, item carries unanimously. Substitute is before us. Could you read the caption? Ms. Caption.
Yes, it's an ordinance by Councilmember Carla Smith, as substituted by Finance Executive Committee to rescind resolution number 19R 5191 and authorize the mayor or her designee to execute a sole source agreement for SS 120008080 Ibm Maximo Asset Management Annual Software Subscription Services with International Business Machines Corporations on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management and the Department of Aviation for an initial term of 3 years, retroactively beginning February 1st, 2020, with 2 one-year renewal options in an amount not to exceed $1,338,236.99 to ratify services rendered by International Business Machines Corporations beginning February 1st, 2020, in accordance with Section 21163. All contract awards should be charged and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed and for other purposes.
All right, and I understand Ms. Smith, the author, is on the line. Ms. Smith, are you presenting?
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Vice Chair, if that's okay. Ibm Maximo is a software application system that's used for maintenance for the airport and Watershed. It's for things like maintenance on the pumps, wet wells, routine maintenance. And as you all know, regulators for Watershed and the airport like to see print out of maintenance and work orders. The original legislation was passed in November of 2019. Then the contract negotiations began in early this year. It went back and forth, and of course COVID slowed things down, and I'll say lawyers go back and forth too. The contract was signed on October the 21st, and if we can get this passed and executed by December the 31st, we will not lose our discount pricing, and we will not have to pay for a reactivation fee.
All right. Thank you for your diligent work on this. Any questions for Ms. Smith? I will move approval on substitute.
Second.
There's no further questions or comments. And the vote is open. All right, unanimously, the item's been approved. As substitute, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now we're going to attempt to make some headway here by taking the following carry forward items as a block, if that's quite all right. First of which is item 22-20-1734, ordinance by Ms. Shepard authorizing the transfer of $10,000 from the District 12 carry forward account to the District 12 distribution account to continue serving the Atlanta community for public good and for other purposes. Item 23 is 20-1736. This is an ordinance by Mr. Maximo authorizing a $5,000 donation from the District 8 carry forward account to Park Pride on behalf of the Friends of the Atlanta Waterworks to support their legacy grant application to create a playground within the Waterworks Park and for other purposes. Item 24 is 20-1737, ordinance by Ms. Winslow authorizing a $700 donation from the District 4 carry forward account to assist various community organizations in Council District 4 and for other purposes. And we picked it up again with item 27, 20-1742, an ordinance by Mr. Westmoreland authorizing a $2,000 donation from the Post 2 at-large carry forward account to the Chastain Park Conservancy for other purposes. And 29 is 20-1744, ordinance by Mr. Westmoreland authorizing a $1,000 donation from the Post 2 at-large carry forward account to a Grove Park renewal to support affordable housing initiatives and for other purposes. And one more, which is item 34, 20-1750, ordinance by Stickens authorizing a donation in the amount of $500 to LEAD to support the Center for Youth grand opening and for other purposes. If there's no questions or comments, I'll make a motion to approve all those items.
Mr. Vice Chair?
Yes.
1 second. Could you also found we missed item number 28? It needs to go to the block.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Westmoreland. This is 20-1743, an ordinance by Mr. Westmoreland authorizing a $1,000 donation from the Post 2 at-large care forward account to the Paw Kids to support community wellness initiatives and for other purposes. My motion stands.
Second stands.
The vote is open.
All right, it carries unanimously. All right. Now to the main event, a series of Deloitte-related papers. Now, several of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, could be called fix-it papers as they remedy various defects. And it could be that they will be foster less discussion than the go forward paper. And so I wonder if we would like to sort those out first, if that's all right with the committee.
Yes, sir.
All right. Then what we're going to do then is save 26 and 26 is a fixed paper. This is 20-1740, ordinance by Ms. Hyde to waive the listed section of the Procurement and Real Estate Code, to ratify the term existing issued on October 4 of 2017 in connection with the cooperative purchase agreement number listed, scoping and planning consulting services with Deloitte Consulting LLP, and authorizing the Chief Procurement Officer to execute the appropriate documents in accordance with the code section listed here and give it a proper retroactive effect from October 6 of 2017 through January 4 of 2018 and for other purposes. And are we the same presenter presenting this group of papers? Who is presenting?
Mr. Vice Chair, I believe it's members of the finance team.
Yes, I'm sorry. I thought you guys heard me. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yep.
Okay, all right. So, was that item number 20, was it item number 30? I'm sorry.
No, 26.
26. Okay.
So if you could tell us, what defect this remedies, that'd be great.
Found that it was discovered that the code section that was actually used for the extension of the term agreement was not correct. And so this paper is seeking to provide the proper code section to retroactively extend and ratify the agreement terms for this particular piece of legislation.
Okay, so the dates were incorrect for the extension?
Yes. Well, it was the code section that was actually used to authorize the extension. So apparently the code, the conditions of the code section.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Questions or comments from committee members? I will move approval.
Second.
Let's open the vote.
The vote is up.
All right, it carries unanimously. That takes us to item 30, 20-1745, the ordinance by Ms. Hyde, ratify the migration services rendered under Amendment number 2 of the Cooperative Purchase Agreement number which is indicated, scoping and planning consulting services by Deloitte Consulting as single system integrator in an amount not to exceed $13,056,550 in accordance with the code section indicated here and for other purposes. Mr. Counsel.
Thank you. This piece of legislation is to correct this ordinance to ratify additional migration services performed by Deloitte for the Oracle Cloud ERP and HCM in accordance with Amendment number 2 of the Cooperative Purchasing Agreement. Due to the language being inadvertently omitted that authorizes the Department of Finance to designate Deloitte as the single systems integrator to achieve the city's goal of implementing the cloud. It is also to expand the scope of the agreement to include the migration services as well.
Questions or comments? I'll move approval.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
Vote carries unanimously. That takes us to item 3120-1747, section of which reads that ordinance by Ms. Hyde to ratify financial process transformation consulting services rendered by Deloitte Consulting Services, LLP, in connection with the city's temporary postponement of the go-live date for the Oracle Cloud implementation under cooperative purchase agreement, the number of which is syndicated, scope and planning, consulting services with Deloitte Consulting in an amount not to exceed $2 million in accordance with the listed sections of the code and for other purposes. Hello?
Hello?
Mute. Go ahead, Mr. Counsel.
Okay, thank you. This piece of legislation is to ratify the process transformation consulting services rendered by Deloitte in connection with the city's temporary postponement of the go-live date for the Oracle Cloud implementation, which was scheduled to be implemented in October, but had to be moved back 3 months. And this language, in doing this, the language was inadvertently omitted from the authorized Deloitte provision of the technology subject matter expertise and support for organizational change management during the temporary 3 months. So in essence, the things that were actually noted in the prior piece of legislation about designating them as the system single integrator should have actually been carried forward in this paper as well for those 3 temporary months, which is what this piece of legislation is addressing.
All right. Am I right that to perfect this paper, a substitute is in order?
I'm not aware of a substitute.
Mr. Vice Chair, this item, number 31 and the next 32, we did get a request if we could move them forward with, on condition rather, because we did not receive the substitute for these 2 items. We're needing the entire actual body for these 2 pieces.
All right. Mr. Counsel, do you concur with that?
I do.
Right, well, then let's also take item 32, which has the same needs. This is 20-1748. An ordinance by Ms. Hyde to ratify the management, organizational, and business improvement services, including special projects concerning Greenhouse Lab in New York and Serenbe, rendered under agreement number 3 of a co-op, number of which is syndicated, scoping and planning consulting services by Deloitte in an amount not to exceed $60,000 in accordance with the code section indicated here. And so it's my understanding again that in order to perfect both these fix-it papers, the correct action here would be to send them forward on condition of receiving said substitute. And I will go ahead and make said motion.
Second.
All right. No questions, comments, so let's vote.
Vote is open.
Both items are sent forward on condition of proceeding substitute unanimously. That takes us to item 33, 20-1749, ordinance by Ms. Hyde to ratify services rendered in connection with a co-op purchase, number which is syndicated, scoping and planning consulting services with Deloitte Consulting, utilizing general services administration contract number which is syndicated on behalf of the Department of Finance in an amount not to exceed $10,473,747, consulting and management services rendered between January 5 of 2019 through May 9th of 2020 in accordance with the code section indicated, authorizing the CFO to pay outstanding invoices for services rendered, all invoices to be charged to and paid from, etc. Mr. Counsel.
Thank you. So this substitute legislation that is to secure authorization sought by Department of Finance for services rendered by Deloitte as part of the implementation and post-implementation schedule for payments made to said Deloitte from January 2019 through May 9th, 2020.
All right. And do we need a substitute for this?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair, we did receive a substitute for this item as well.
All right, I'll move to bring it forward.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote on bringing forward the substitute.
The vote is open.
Thank you. And if the caption's different, Ms. Kempson-Wright, could you do the honors?
Will do.
All right, substitutes unanimously before us.
And Mr. Vice Chair, just scanning, it does not appear that there are any changes. The changes are actually throughout the body of the legislation, so there's no change to the caption.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Council.
Okay. Are we on the very last one?
No, there's one in held, and then we have to go forward paper.
Oh, no, no.
Okay.
Mr. Vice Chair.
So the one that we just talked to was the one that's been held.
No,
We
sir.
are. No, we're
We're
not
still
holding.
on item number 33.
Yeah.
33.
Yeah.
Right. We need to take the vote now to approve on substitute.
So moved.
Second. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
All right, item is unanimously approved on substitute, and our final of the fixed papers requires us to delve through held into to page 25. And this item 63. And okay, that this is 20-014-42, an ordinance by Finance Tech to ratify the contract with syndicated scoping and planning consulting services and authorize amendment number 4, agreement with Deloitte Consulting LLP on behalf of Department of Finance. This amendment number 4 seeks to authorize 4 separate actions. Number 1, the CFO is to ratify the FY 2020 budget, transferring appropriations from various city departments for an amount not to exceed $5,967,375 to be projects and grants, project number which is indicated, in order to fund post-implementation services for the Oracle ERP and HCM cloud migration. Number 2, to pay for outstanding invoices as a result of services rendered between the term of January 5th, 2019 through March 31st of 2020. Number 3, to authorize services to be rendered during a retroactive term effective January 5th of last year through March 5 of 2021. 4, to authorize additional professional services referred to as ATL Cloud Sustainment be rendered for an amount not to exceed $2,700,500. These ATL Cloud Sustainment services shall begin specifically on March 7th, 2020 through March 5th of 2021 in accordance with the code section indicated here and for other purposes, Mr. Council.
Thank you. So this piece of legislation was to ratify the agreement to add sufficient detail of all of the service that was actually being rendered and associated with charges that were incurred from January 2019 through May 9th of 2020, and to add Department of Human Resources and AIM as authorized user agencies under the agreement for services rendered by Deloitte on each department on each department's behalf from January 2019 through May 9th of 2020.
And do we need to change the amount via an amendment?
Yes, we do have a substitute for this one, and the caption is completely different.
Oh, excellent. In that case, you shall read it.
It is a substitute ordinance by Finance Executive Committee to ratify services rendered in connection with cooperative purchasing agreement, SC 9150, scoping and planning consulting services with Deloitte Consulting LLP, utilizing General Services Administration contract number listed on behalf of the Department of Finance in an amount not to exceed $7,597,247.00 for consulting and management services rendered between January 5th, 2019 through May 9th, 2020. In accordance with Section 21163 of Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code, authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to pay outstanding invoices. All invoices to be charged and paid from account numbers listed and for other purposes.
All right, I'll move to bring the substitute forward.
Second.
All right. Let's vote to bring it formally before us. Vote's open. All right, substitute is before us, Mr. Counsel. Well, why the amount change?
Well, the amount that actually changed on that was, again, due to the extra period of time extended from January of 2019 through May 9th, 2020. And to add an additional period of time through, I believe it was March of 21.
Questions or comments? Sure. I'll move approval as substituted. And let's open the vote.
Vote is open.
All right, substitute is approved 6-0. Now, does that exhaust the cleanup papers associated with this?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair.
Oh, sorry. So we got the go forward paper yet, but here's my question. Were any of these Deloitte contracts or agreements properly formatted and executed? Because if so, I'd like a hard copy so that I might laminate it. That's an actual, yeah, that's an actual question. I've never seen such a mess involving so much money. All right, that takes us back to the go forward paper, which is item 25. And I'll move to bring forward a substitute.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote and bring forward the substitute.
Vote is open.
All right, substitutes before us. Who's presenting?
I will pass this on to COO John King.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you, Roosevelt. I'm going to talk through a couple things that are mostly related to what our plan is related to the governance aspect of this work moving forward, as well as our plans related to the phased transition of support over the course of the next 2 years, which is the length of this contract agreement. We obviously have others on the line, such as the Chief Procurement Officer, as well as Ty Hayes the interim CIO and obviously Roosevelt and his team if there are other questions more specific to the GSA vehicle or any of the elements of the specific procurement. As we move forward, we identified a couple of things that we felt were important to make sure that as we move from what is our current phase, which when we look at the go live of the program and the time and efforts leading into that go live, and then we look at the months since we've gone live with the ATL Cloud as we've done additional development and integration work. There's much to be proud of. There's a lot of necessary business process work that has gone into those efforts over the last many months and years. As we move on from that phase, which was the critical first phase where we leveraged the support of Deloitte to get us to that point and stand up the business processes, stand up the Oracle solution, which is ATL Cloud. We're now moving into the second phase here, which is really focused on training ourselves on this system and starting the process to transition elements of support of the system. And I'm going to talk about that in greater detail. As we move into that phase, we've asked AIM to lead the development of our long-term and integrated recommended governance model for the ATL Cloud. And this model will ensure that we are integrating the ATL Cloud with the existing governance and oversight processes that we have with our other city enterprise applications. It'll ensure input by the primary user agencies, such as procurement and HR, and of course, finance. It will also provide oversight and input on all related procurements, as well as the security requirements related to the system. And that model will be developed and presented to both myself and the CFO for final approval. That's a core first step as we move into this next phase of work. In addition, that'll kick off planning related to the operations, maintenance, and integration support needs that will be necessary as we finalize what are the internal support plans for how our staff, both within the functional departments as well as within the escalation teams, will continue to support the ATL Cloud. And then what is the scope of work for a competitive procurement that we will then look to do as we move from this second phase into what I'm calling the third phase, which is basically the steady state moving forward. So to hone in on where we're at and where we're going over these next 2 years, which the length of this procurement in front of you, it's about a 2-year procurement, and through that time, we're really starting to hone in on this governance model, the transition of elements of the functional work to our departments and the staff, training them on how they can own and complete what we're calling a level 1 support with their functional teams. We're doing the further security assessments. It's a critical piece of what AIM does for all of our systems, especially our enterprise systems. We're implementing that governance model to make sure that long-term we've got all of the right stakeholders around the table. We are finalizing that scope of services related to what our long-term steady state looks like, such that we'll put that out for competitive procurement. As you think about the model, as mentioned, we have worked very closely with the Deloitte team in this first phase. Those services and our support will start to become more prevalent as we go through phase 2, and then in phase 3, as mentioned, our expectation is that our city staff will have taken on the level 1 and level 2 support for this system, and we will still look to have some contracted support, but it'll be focused on level 3 and some integration support with other systems as needed on a go-forward basis. So those are the plans, both from a procurement perspective, which is the legislation before you, as well as from a governance perspective for the ATL cloud, which again is a critical system for our city, and we do have much to be proud of in terms of the work that has been done to date, and we've got to make sure that we have in place the right structure moving forward to continue that work with all of the right stakeholders around the table.
Does that conclude your comments?
It does, yes. Thank you, Vice Chair.
I have a question for law, as I've been given to understand that throughout this sort of development process, that law and finance worked collaboratively together to sort through all of this. Is there's someone familiar with this in law who's on the line who could speak to this?
This is Nina Hickson. I will speak to it best I can.
Thank you. I just have one simple question. I know you or members of your staff have worked on this, and I would just like to know your recommendations regarding the go-forward paper, if you're comfortable with it.
Absolutely. As it relates to the go-forward paper, we don't have any issues from a legal perspective. We have worked through the concerns that were articulated previously, and our main concern would have to do with making sure that as the government changes, as Mr. Keene has already indicated is going to take place, that there be the appropriate entities at the table, including human resources and AIM, and that so that this can operate as a check and balance on what occurs. We don't want to find ourselves in the situation we were previously with Deloitte, in that there having been the expenditure of funds without there being prior council approval and without the underlying legislation that we need. But we also need to make sure that check and balances in terms of looking at the work that's been delivered and whether it meets the requirements under the contract. But from a purely legal standpoint, we don't have any issues with the legislation.
Okay. I appreciate that. That's important. Are you a member of the ERP governance team that, as far as I know, has always been in place since inception of this?
I am not.
Okay. Can finance or someone else on the call tell us about the status, looking back, of the governance team? Has it been functional, operating? Who's been running it, et cetera?
This is CFO Counsel, so I will ask Deputy CFO John Gaffney to speak to this from a historical perspective.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, John Gaffney, Department of Finance. So the steering committee, we called it the Executive Steering Committee, has actually been in existence since inception. There has not been a recent meeting held for various reasons, but the steering committee, just based on best practices recommended by Deloitte, is really comprised of the three main functional units, being finance, HR, and procurement. Those are the largest stakeholder departments as it relates to, obviously doing procurement, doing hiring, retirement, as well as the financial statements and keeping the books. The technology department is also a member of the executive steering committee meetings. So we've got AIM, procurement, HR, and finance. At the lower level, there's been each week since go live, we call it the Program Management Office, PMO, which is again staffed by members of HR, procurement, finance, and AIM. So those have been, to my knowledge, going on every week since January of 2019. So that's kind of the history of the executive steering committee, and again, because it was and still is included in the scope of services that Deloitte provides, we can always look at enhancing that if law wants to be at the table. That's not really an issue. It's really more focused on the stakeholder departments right now, so procurement, HR, and finance.
Okay. And do you happen to know who chairs the steering committee and when their last meeting was?
I can get that for you. I don't know off the top of my head. Up until I think the last meeting we had, typically the meetings are, I guess, more or less run by Deloitte, and that was in the process of transitioning over to finance, going forward.
All right. Here's what I think. Everyone on this call knows that Oracle is too big to fail. Period. Full stop. You unplug that, and we collapse. We're flying blind. It'd be worse than a cyber attack. So the question then is that we're all struggling with is how do we make sure that what has happened in the past does not continue to plague us moving forward? I mean, this whole program just sort of seems to me to be kind of out of control and have a life of its own. And I think what is needed here, and which I will be happy to work with other more knowledgeable people to help devise, is some kind of way that more eyes can get put on this, and where council, can keep better apprised of what's going on and decisions and things that are happening and things that aren't happening and when things are going off the rails. And I'm not sure. I've got some ideas just from listening to this, but I'm happy to work with someone to develop, legislation that accomplishes those ends that could be introduced. I am morbidly curious, Mr. Keene. I apologize that your first appearance before us includes you having to go through all this, but I am curious, when you were familiarizing yourself with the state of affairs, what was going through your mind?
Well, council member, I'd say there's been kind of two general feelings. One is certainly there's frustration around some of the challenges that we faced, which I would say have mostly been, to Ms. Nixon's point. Ms. Nixon's point has been mostly around elements of governance, and there's been some models in place. They've done a good job from the program management perspective. We've got to do a better job at the executive steering committee level and own that further and put in place greater controls around some of the things that we're talking about today, because there's a lot of successes around the actual system, but we've got to do a better job around the governance. And so there's frustration around that element. As I have been working through this with the team and with Roosevelt and his team, there's also, some element of pride. I mean, at the end of the day, Ms. Hickson's team has worked with myself, Roosevelt, and his team to make sure that we are doing all the proper things to make corrections and be transparent about those corrections. And so, while there's been frustration and nobody is excited to bring forth 5 pieces of corrective legislation, there is pride about the fact that we're working through this and we're trying to do it in a transparent way.
I muted myself. Questions or comments from members of the committee? Chair calls for a motion.
Mr. Vice Chair, I have to read the caption.
Why don't you do that? Other committee members can unmute themselves while you read it.
An ordinance by Councilmember Jennifer N. Ide is substituted by Finance Executive Committee to authorize the mayor or her designee to execute cooperative agreement number listed utilizing Deloitte GSA schedule with Deloitte Consulting LLP on behalf of the Department of Finance for a term retroactively effective beginning May 10, 2020 through September 6, 2022 in an amount not to exceed $12,775,125.00 to continue the Oracle Cloud ERP implementation and certain post-implementation support activities, to ratify the Oracle Cloud ERP implementation and certain post-implementation support activities rendered by Deloitte Consulting beginning May 10, 2020 in accordance with Section 21163, subsection C of Article 10 Procurement and Real Estate Code, and to amend the FY 2021 budget by transferring appropriations from various city of Atlanta departments in an amount not to exceed $12,775,125.00. All contract work to be charged and paid from other funding numbers listed herein and for the purposes.
Thank you. Is there a motion? So, Mr. Keene, what you're experiencing here is our extreme level of discomfort with the conditions that have brought us to this point. And I will tell you something that I'm sure you've already figured out. There are some activities and functions here in this city that, to work as hoped, requires nothing less than the COO, who has the power to lock 4 or 5 department heads in a room and shut the door and crack heads as is needed. If you think you can rely on departments to self-break the silos they have walled themselves in, it's never going to happen. And I realize this is not unique to the city of Atlanta. This is unfortunately a regular feature in both the public and private sectors. But, I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
If there's no additional questions or comments, let's open the vote. And I will be happy to work with any of y'all to develop, the kind of extra eyes and/or safety net that we need. Vote's open. Five yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention. All right. That takes us to our legislative package, I believe, which is item 35. Oh, we're resolutions already. That's 20R4618, resolution by Ms. Ide, urging the 2021 regular session of the Georgia General Assembly to support the City of Atlanta's 2021 legislative package and for other purposes. Committee colleagues, this had been previously disseminated to us. We have sort of attacked this two ways in the past. I think often what we have done is send it forward with no recommendation so that it's not on the consent agenda. And so, we kind of accentuate opportunities for the other members to familiarize themselves with it and prepare amendments that they would like to see added. So we could move forward that way. I don't know the extent to which this list was socialized with the body. Mr. Westmoreland, I see you're signed up to speak.
I am. I wanted to thank the administration for this list. It's clear that they have taken into consideration various resolutions that this body has passed over the last several months, from issuing tax abatements to no-knock warrants to housing affordability measures. And so I just wanted to say thank you for a quality list and look forward to us acting vigorously to make some progress on these fronts in the session. And at the appropriate moment, we'll be happy to second your motion to send it forward with no recommendation.
All right, let me ask this. Is there anyone on the line who has kind of managed the formulation and socialization of this list? My question being, how broadly were you able to communicate with other council members?
Hello, Mr. Vice Chair. This is Jerome Dorton, Deputy Chief of Staff. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. And also want to thank Mr. Westmoreland for his comments. One thing we did with this package, similar to last year, is, our main focus is on the city opposing any legislation related to the change in ownership and governance and oversight of the airport. So we intentionally kept it light, but we did expand it this year beyond last year's to incorporate some measures related to housing affordability and public safety, many of which have been discussed in city council sessions. For example, Public Safety Committee, multiple occasions made specific requests to us related to street racing legislation. That's legislation we're also considering, so that worked as well. And some of the other requests that came before council resolution. So that was part of our approach, was listening to council through their communications and resolutions that were passed, working with our departments as well to get ideas. And many of these, if not all of these proposals, are things that council should already be familiar with, either through passing through resolution, they're on last year's package, or they've come up in discussions in other areas.
Okay, I'm going to let my motion stand, and I appreciate Mr. Westmoreland's second, that we send this forward with no recommendation. I would ask that staff make sure that in the interim attention of the rest of the body, of all the members, is drawn to the opportunity to review that and to formulate additions. Ms. Archibald.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if any consideration has been given to commenting or having some recommendations relative to election laws.
That's a very good question, Councilmember Archibald. It's definitely on our radar and things we will continue to monitor as the session progresses. That there was some consideration related to this package, but I believe whether it's in this package or just throughout session, it's going to be something we're going to be vigilant and monitoring and working hard to make sure that City of Atlanta's voice is heard against any legislation that could potentially disenfranchise voters or cause a negative impact on voting.
Which is the kind of thing that I think we might want to refine. So I appreciate that we're going to have, I guess, until next meeting on Monday to add more or refine things. All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And who is the city's ranking government liaison?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Currently, I, as Deputy Chief of Staff, report to Carmen Chubb, who oversees government affairs. But I'm working in addition to our government affairs team and working with Paul and Knight on this particular effort and our government affairs efforts.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Let's open the vote on the motion to send forward with no recommendation. That vote's open. All right, it passes 5 yeas, 0 nays, and 1 abstention. That takes us to item 36, which is 20R 4621, a resolution by Mr. Ferrotti authorizing the City of Atlanta to accept a monetary donation from the Atlanta Downtown Improvement District and Nancy Wellis in an amount not to exceed $24,672 so as to purchase 20 trash receptacles for use throughout the Sweet Auburn neighborhood on Auburn Avenue and Edgewood Avenue and for other purposes.
Move approval.
Yep, second. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, let's open the vote.
1 second. We do have a substitute. It does not change the caption, but we do need to make a motion to bring it forward.
So moved.
Second.
The vote is open.
All right, thank you. The substitutes before us, I'll move approval on substitute.
Second.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote?
All right, it carries unanimously. That takes us to the AIM hour. And number 37 is 20R 4673, resolution by Finance and Check, authorizing the mayor or designee to execute cooperative purchase agreement, number of which is indicated, Palo Alto firewall products with CDWG Government LLC on behalf of AIM, Watershed, and Aviation for a term of 3 years with 0 renewal options in an amount not to exceed $1,848,844. All contract work can be charged to and paid from the sources listed. And who is presenting?
This is Ty Hayes. Can you hear me?
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. So this item is for the maintenance of our Palo Alto networking equipment that we have distributed throughout the city. It is the equipment that we use for our network segmentation and our firewall management so that you can get into the city remotely. This is for maintenance of the equipment that we already have. So through our application rationalization program, we were able to negotiate this maintenance that will take care of all of our existing equipment, but also any future purchases that we make over the next 3-year period. And this does support all of the agencies that have the equipment installed today.
Thank you. Questions and or comments? I will move approval.
Second.
Let's open the vote if there's nothing else.
Vote is open.
All right, legislation stands approved. Next up is 38, which is 20R 4676, resolution by Finance Exec, authorizing the mayor or designee to exercise rule number 1 of a co-op, agreement of which number of which is indicated, AT&T Voice and Network Services with AT&T on behalf of AIM, Aviation, and Watershed for a term of 1 year effective February 14th of 2021. through February 13th of 2022, with 2 one-year renewal term options remaining in an amount not to exceed $5,440,000. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from the sources indicated.
Good afternoon. This is Tahi again. So this is our enterprise agreement with AT&T. We do have telecom and data and voice services covered under this agreement. This is also an item that we spent some time negotiating a contract and rates for city services that had previously been treated as a utility. This is how all of our internet connections to our buildings and services that we have throughout the city. So this is the agreement that would allow us to continue to do that and pay those bills.
Questions, comments? I will move approval.
Second.
All right, let's open those votes.
Vote is open.
All right, item carries unanimously. Number 39 is 20R4677, a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor or designee to exercise renewal number 3 of a co-op, number of which is indicated with T-Mobile, wireless voice data services with T-Mobile USA, Inc., on behalf of AIM for a term of 1 year, effective February 16th of 2021 through February 15th of 2022. In an amount not to exceed $72,900, all contract work being charged to and paid from, etc.
Good afternoon again. This is our enterprise agreement for T-Mobile telecom services. We use this service today to support hotspot coverage and supplemental cellular coverage when there is a coverage issue where our primary vendor service does not work. And so this agreement will allow us to continue that service and pay those bills.
All right, please excuse the barking. That's my security detail. Good work. Questions or comments? I will move approval.
Second.
Let's open the vote.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. One moment.
Apparently I've been muted thanks to my dogs. Let's try this again. Item number 40 is 20R4678, a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor or designee to execute amendment number 1 for sole source agreement, the FC designation indicated, Stratus service support, annual maintenance with Stratus Technologies, Inc., on behalf of APD to add funding in an amount not to exceed $38,922.71, all contracted work being charged to and paid from, etc. Ms. Hayes.
Thank you. This agreement is basically a bridge support agreement. We are in the process of implementing a new CAD system for our for the airport and our general fund APD systems. And because we experienced some delays with that project, we needed to have some extended support on the current solution. So this just gives us that coverage until we're able to fully implement. We're looking to implement the airport in the next couple of weeks, and the rest of APD will implement sometime around March. So this agreement just bridges that support for us.
Questions or comments? I will move approval.
Second.
Let's open that vote.
The vote is open.
All right, item carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 41 is 20R4679, resolution by finance check authorizing the mayor or designee to issue task order, the number of which is indicated for the contract which is indicated, job order contracting services with F.H. Passion, S.N. Nielsen and Associates, LLC, for HVAC system upgrades at the City of Atlanta Public Safety Annex on behalf of APD in an amount not to exceed $191,764.65. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from account solicited and for other purposes. And let's take the next several items as a block, as they all add transportation to existing annual maintenance contracts, if that's okay. 42.
Mr. Shutt?
Yeah.
We can take 41 by itself, and then we can take the remaining as a block, 42, 44, 45, 46, and 47 together. The item that we're considering right now is solely for HVAC systems at the Public Safety Annex. It does not include Department of Transportation. It's the following items after that.
Okay, and the rest all add transportation to existing maintenance annual. Got it. Any questions or comments about this paper, item 41? Seeing none, I'll move approval.
Second.
Vote is open.
That motion carries unanimously. That takes us to 42, which is 20R4680, resolution by finance check authorizing the mayor or designee to execute amendment number 2 of an agreement, the number of which is indicated for roof repair, replacement, and maintenance services with Rikers Construction LLC on behalf of Enterprise Assets Management, so as to add the Atlanta Department of Transportation as an authorized user in an amount not to exceed $50,000, all work being charged to and paid from, etc. The next item is 43, which is 20R4681, resolution by finance check authorizing the mayor or designee to execute special procurement agreement, number of which is indicated. It's the online permitting system with Apply for Technology LLC for the purpose of right-of-way online permitting pursuant to the code section indicated on behalf of Department of Transportation for a term of 1 year with a 1-year renewal option effective December 28th of this year in an amount not to exceed $210,000, all contracted work being charged to and paid from, etc. Item 44 is 20R4682, resolution by finance check authorizing the mayor or designee to execute amendment number 3, the agreement which is indicated here, HVAC services with Train US Inc. on behalf of Enterprise Assets Management, so as to add the Department of Transportation as an authorized user, not to exceed $150,000. And item 45 is 20R4683, resolution by finance exec authorizing the mayor designee to execute amendment number 5, the agreement indicated citywide electrical repair and maintenance services with Capital City Electrical Services LLC on behalf of Enterprise Assets Management, so as to add the Department of Transportation as an authorized user in an amount not to exceed $10,000. And item 46 is 20R 4684, resolution by finance check authorizing mayor to need to execute amendment number 1 for the agreement indicated heating and air conditioning services with ARS Mechanical LLC on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Assets Management. Chad, the Atlanta Department of Transportation is the user of the agreement and not to exceed $46,408.16. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from, etc. Item 47 is 20R 4685, resolution by the SEC authorizing the mayor to need to execute amendment number 9. The agreement indicated citywide plumbing maintenance and services with the plumbing shop DBA Quick Action Plumbing on behalf of Enterprise Assets Management. So it's to add the transportation's an authorized user to the tune of $68,746.84. And so, Ms. Kempston Wright, keep me straight here. We can take all those, but we have to take 43 separate. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Well, let's take the items that I've read exclusive of item 43 as a block. Are there any questions or comments from committee members? All right, seeing none, let's open the vote on the mentioned as a block with the exception of 43, which we'll come back to.
Preparing the vote. Mr. Shedd, we need a seconder. We had a mover.
Second.
Thank you. Vote is open.
All right, motion favorable unanimously on the items listed. That brings us back to 43, which is 20R 4681. I've already read the caption. It adds transportation as a user with Applied for Technology Inc., which handles permitting activities. Are there any questions or comments? I will move approval.
Second.
All right, let's open that vote.
Vote is open.
All right, that carries unanimously. So that takes us, I believe, to 48. 20R 4686, finance check. Authorizing the mayor or does need to amend the cooperative purchasing agreement with Litex Inc. As designated as listed driver risk management system pursuant to code section listed here to provide equipment, service, and support for the driver risk management system to include an additional funding account on behalf of Parks and Rec in an amount not to exceed $164,996, all contracted work being charged to and paid from, etc. Questions about this item? I will move approval.
Second.
Mr. Vice Chair, we do have an amendment to this one, which adds the Department of Transportation to the accounts and the binding clauses.
So moved.
Yeah, okay, second. Thank you.
The vote is open.
Please vote. carries unanimously. Brings us to our dreaded dual referrals, the first of which is item 4920, 1730, an ordinance by Ms. Smith, authorizing the CFO to make transfers within the coronavirus relief funds provided to the city pursuant to the CARES Act, the total of which shall be utilized for the costs that are necessary expenditures incurred due to the public health emergency with respect to the coronavirus disease 2019 that were not accounted for in the budget most recently approved March 27 of 2020, the date of the enactment of the CARES Act, and that were incurred during the period that began March 1st of 2020 and ends on December 30th of 2020, and for other purposes. And this comes forward favorably, I believe, Ms. Westmoreland, from your committee.
Yes, sir, it does.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? I'll move approval. Oh, Ms. Archibald, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's always a lag time between hitting these buttons and being recognized, so no worries. I've spoken with Ms. COO King, and I do have some recommendations for an amendment that are not quite ready. So for that reason, I just wanted to say I'm not going to be voting for it. I'm going to be abstaining, but looking forward to having that ready, and I'll pass it out to all the council members before our meeting on Monday.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? I'm not seeing anyone, so I'll make a motion to approve.
Separate.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open.
All right, 5-0 and 1. Mr. Archibald has abstained for the reason stated. So we'll take this up with an amendment at our next opportunity. Number 50 is 20-7038, an ordinance by Ms. Boone waiving the competitive source selection requirements contained in the city code to execute an agreement with the Atlanta-Fulton County Pre-Arrest Diversion Initiative, Inc., a nonprofit organization to provide free arrest diversion and community referral program services in an amount not to exceed $1.5 million as provided in the fiscal year 2021 budget approved via ordinance 20-1260 for a term of 1 year with 3 one-year renewal term options, commencing retroactively on July 1st of 2020 to ratify services provided from July 1 of 2020 through the execution of the agreement authorized hereby to authorize all contracted work to be charged to and paid from the accounts listed herein and for other purposes. And this also came forward, I believe, unanimously from public safety. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Shook. It came forward from public safety.
All right. Any questions or comments from members? All right. I will second Ms. Shepherd's motion to approve. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, let's open the vote.
Vote is open.
Item stands unanimously approved. Thank you. That takes us to item 51, 20-017, 41, an ordinance by Ide, Shepherd, Shook, and Maxikite to amend Chapter 10 to require that the CFO shall conduct annual forensic audits of the financial records of a sample of establishments licensed for the sale of alcoholic beverages by the City of Atlanta to confirm that establishments licensed to sell alcohol for consumption on the premises as eating establishments in accordance with state law for restaurants in accordance with the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances and establishments licensed to sell alcohol for consumption off the premises as package stores in accordance with the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances remain entitled to exemptions from certain distance requirements and other alcohol regulations for which they have qualified based upon a percentage of gross food and or alcoholic beverage sales, to require that the sample of establishments subject to the forensic audits required to be conducted in accordance herewith shall contain no less than 1% of the number of such establishments licensed for the sale of alcoholic beverages by the city on September 30th of the year prior to that in which audits shall be conducted, to authorize the CFO to promulgate administrative regulations by which the sample of establishments subject to the review required hereby shall be chosen and for other purposes. And so this comes to us via the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee, on which I do not serve. And so I would appreciate hearing from Shepard or someone else about that conversation.
So, Mr. Shook, we did, this is a way for us, as you all know, that right now, in terms of alcohol sales, based on what the entity is, if it's a restaurant or other entities, they're only supposed to sell 5% of their alcohol, and the rest should be based on them being a restaurant or other things. Unfortunately, what has happened over the years is that there has not been a way of actually holding these establishments accountable, other than and not through LRB. So this legislation actually put the onus of that on the finance department to actually allow them to do audits of some of these establishments. In terms of, we can't do audit because it's a huge amount, so that will be an audit process. But what we asked in terms of amendment that I asked for at Public Safety was that the finance department comes forth with a process as to how they would actually choose who and how they would do this. And so that was an amendment was made. But basically, this is a way of actually doing audits of establishments across the city, which would be selling alcohol at a certain percentage in terms of guidelines and procedures, and making sure that the finance department arbitrarily does that audit.
Okay. I wholeheartedly support this paper, and on behalf of District 7 constituents, want it to work. And so I do have a concern that maybe someone can address. The problem with license and permits forever has been a shortage of accountants needed to do the work. And so I'm guessing, but the finance department will state for themselves whether or not they have the capacity with their existing staffing to take this on, or whether in this challenging financial environment it would mean creating new positions.
So we need somebody from the finance. No one asked that question before. I guess the question you're asking is, can finance take it on? So we will have to have somebody from the administration come forth to ask that question, answer that question. Is there anyone here from the administration? Roosevelt Council, or I hate to put it on the COO, but if you're still here, anyone from finance.
Okay. All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, this is CFO Council.
Okay, thank
Sorry, they just unmuted my line. So we've actually started having conversations about how we want to actually review these records. There's a good chance that we can actually manage that with current staff. But that's what we're actually looking at now, and it's our hopes that we will be able to do that with current staff. But we'll look at the aggregate of the number of locations, that we're going to have to provide adequate enough information. It needs to be a large enough sample size for sure, that will give us the outcomes that we're looking for.
What do we think that 1% amounts to?
I'd probably have to get back with you, Mr. Shook, on that. But I should be able to actually do that before we get off this, before this meeting ends.
Okay. Well, I've got some candidates. I've got some candidates in mind. Okay. Now, a question I've had at the law department, and I'm still awaiting feedback on, because man, my public is just on fire over this topic, and the suspicion that clubs are masquerading as restaurants. My question to the law department is, would it be feasible, legal for the city to rely on private sector accounting expertise? And I'm still waiting for that, because I know there's some accountants up here that would probably agree to do some of this work pro bono.
Hi, good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon. This is Amber Robinson from the law department. I apologize that this question had been asked and had not been an answer hadn't been provided. I was not aware of that. So if the city were to contract with a private sector accounting firm or accountant, then they could perform the service. It wouldn't have to be done by employees, but it would have to be done by persons engaged by the city of Atlanta to perform the service.
Okay, well, that's good news. I was concerned that because of the potential for data derived by that activity to wind up, in court or as part of a legal proceeding, that it would, it would have to be done, by a law enforcement associated agency. You're saying no?
No, you're absolutely correct that the idea is that the data very well may end up in a legal proceeding, but part of any engagement would have to be that they would understand that they may need to be witnesses in any such legal proceeding.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments about this paper?
Yeah, I just want to make sure of whatever the percentage that we do audit, that is equity in terms of the audit, that is absolutely across every spectrum of the city, from one end to the other, that when you're doing the sampling of what you're going to audit, or when y'all come up with this process, Mr. Counselor, that is, looking at every side of the city, because we're having this problem all over the city.
Yep. Thank you. Mr. Westmoreland.
Yes, sir. I wanted to thank the folks who have put this piece of paper together and would like to add my name before we pass it.
I will second Mr. Westmoreland's amendment motion. Any questions or comments? If not, let's vote on adding his name as a sponsor. And before we do that, is there anyone else who would like to be added?
Well, I would like you, Mr. Counsel, to answer that question for me, or I made a comment to it, but I just want to make sure, as y'all look at the process, I just want to make sure he understands what I'm asking him.
Okay. Well, let's just vote on the amendment to add Mr. Westmoreland as a co-sponsor, and then we'll get back to Mr. Counsel, all right?
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's carry that vote on adding Mr. Westmoreland as a co-sponsor. The vote is open. All right, motion carries. Mr. Counsel, you still on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Ms. Shepard, go ahead.
Did you hear my question, Mr. Counsel?
Okay, can you repeat that for me?
Okay, I was just saying that as you all look at the audit and the sampling percentages, that there needs to be an equity process in terms of how you all going to do that. And I did ask at the Public Safety Committee meeting that you all come back and give us a process of how you're going to do it, but also looking at equity, because this is happening all across the city. So, Mr. Cook just said, I got about 3 or 4 over his community. I got some in mine. I know Ms. Overstreet got some in hers. And so, you could go all over the city and you got this problem. And so, just how are you going to sample in that?
Oh, okay. So when you say equity, you mean equity across the city as a whole?
Yeah. Yeah, the sample in terms of the audit.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Geographically, yeah.
For sure.
Right.
Okay. So right now, just to answer your question, we have 2,000 alcohol licenses. Okay. So 1% would only give us about 20 sample size.
Well, if it's the right 20, this is going to work.
Yeah, and that's 20. Yeah, that's 20 spread across. If we're talking about equity again, that's 20 spread across a pretty large swath of the city.
Well, what I would recommend, though, is that these not be selected, just through blind, random alphabetical selection. Hey, let's open the. Let's open this window up for recommendations.
Well, I think Mr. Shook, one thing we could do, and I agree, it shouldn't be just arbitrarily, if we're working with license and review board, and if we're doing our due diligence in terms of calls to services at some of these establishments. And that's another thing that we've been working on in terms of where the calls to service are, in terms of what we see as problems, then that may be a way that you can look at that. But I'm telling you, we're having this problem in my district, Ms. Overstreet district, your district, Ms. I's district. We're having it all over. So the several council members are having, Ms. Winslow is having it in her area. So we need to be looking at this, not necessarily in terms of geographical, but looking at the calls to service, where we see the problems are, and begin to look at it. So we're going to have to come up with a process on how we need to do that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Good
we
point.
Can start that. And we can work in conjunction with APD as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So that was the motion to approve?
Yeah, we've amended it, and I will second Ms. Shepherd's motion to approve as amended.
Thank you.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Will everyone please vote?
Please vote. All right, let's go ahead and call it. All right, 5-0. Item carries as amended. Do we have any more duels?
No, sir, we don't have any more duels, but we do need to go back to item number 48, 20R 4686. We actually only brought forth the amendment, but we need the final vote approved as amended.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Well, 20R 4686. All right, this adds driver risk management system to parks, $164,996, but not to exceed amount. And I will move approval as amended.
Second.
Vote is open.
I think I just got knocked out, so if you don't see me, put me as a yes.
Thank you. Will everyone that has access please vote?
All right, well, Ms. Shepard has voted yay. Mr. Dickens may have been excommunicated from the line. Votes favorable, 5 ayes, 0 nays. All right, so if there's no more duels, that takes us all the way down to page 26 in held territory. And I will make a motion to bring forward a substitute for 20R4514. This is a water sewer overpayment paper, refund paper.
Second.
So going to vote on bringing forward a substitute for that item.
The vote is open.
Count me as the aye. I'm trying to get back into the system.
Are you back on board, Ms. Shepard?
No, I'm not. Count me as the aye.
Okay.
Maybe we end our meeting with him walking in.
All right, the substitute. Oh, someone needs to mute. All right. Substitutes before us. Ms. Kempson-Wright, could you do the honors?
Yes, it's a resolution by Councilmember Jennifer N. Ide and substituted by Finance Executive Committee, authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to refund customers for overpayments to their water and sewer accounts in the amount of $21,281.06. All funds to be charged and paid from the fund department, organization, and account numbers listed.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Let's open the vote. Ms. Shepard, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
The vote is open.
All right, items unanimously approved on substitute. That takes us to our final huddle paper. Remember, we do have one walk-in. Item 67 is 20-016-77, ordinance by Finance Sec, authorizing the mayor or designee to enter into amendment number 9. For this, the indicated citywide security guard services with Dynamic Security, Inc. add additional funding for services rendered on a month-to-month basis, retroactively beginning July 1 of 2020 through December 31 of 2020, in an amount not to exceed $486,255.52 on behalf of corrections in accordance with the City Code section here, with all contract work being charged to and paid from, et cetera. And who is presenting?
Mr. Vice Chair, this is Justin Johnson, Deputy Chief Operating Officer.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good. So today, we're seeking approval to move this paper from the health section of the agenda. This is retroactively covering costs associated with services rendered at Gray Hospital on behalf to augment the staff over at the collections department. Again, this is certainly something that we want to make sure we square away in the future, but this is just something we're taking care of retroactively that have already been invoiced.
Well, as I recall, one of the reasons this was held was because the paper prompted some concerns about the source of funds being used here. committee members' questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Shook, I was one of the people who asked the question because last moment we didn't have, last committee meeting we didn't have clarity on that. So since that time, I have met with Mr. Johnson along with Mr. Bartlett and corrections to clarify that. So again, I think that was something he was trying to explain earlier. And Mr. Johnson, you said you sent a memo. Can you kind of briefly go through what we talked about in terms of that?
Yes, ma'am. And so traditionally, so there are services rendered over at Grady. So we do have, correctional officers that are staffed and working in various posts within Grady, but there are times when we have to augment those services with security officers. And so we're already moving forward, looking at a different staffing model, but this is just solely, just covering those costs for the period that's mentioned in that legislation for hours that had been previously worked. And so, just sort of...
I'm sorry, this is retroactive, and then it's also through the end of December of this year, correct?
Yes, ma'am, it is to the end of December of this year, and that's it.
And then going forward, in January, the Corrections Department will be looking in particular at Grady Hospital. We'll be looking at actually handling all cases at Grady Hospital. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. And that's, part of the longer redeployment strategy that has been discussed that our staff is working towards and bringing forward at the beginning of February.
Okay. February or January?
February. Okay. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's the deadline that council had given to the staff.
In terms of deploying the corrections folks, but in terms of this particular legislation, I was told by Mr. Bartlett that possibly we will be doing this the beginning of this month in December. You're training the corrections officers, and then in January it will be actually the security folks who are at Grady will pull back, and then it will be actually the corrections officers will be having all security at Grady Hospital full time going forward.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we were clear about that. So I'm okay with this at this point, Mr. Shook. I don't know if anybody else has questions, but I'm okay.
Okay, Mr. Westmoreland has signed up.
I am. Thank you. I still have the same concerns that I had last time, and we'll vote accordingly just in terms of FTE counts and spending additional money for additional people and so on and so forth. But I was curious about if anybody knew, this is retroactive to start on July 1st and run through the end of this month, why, Mr. Shook, you referenced the funding stream, which is a trust fund. I'm curious about why this wasn't included in the Department of Corrections budget that started on July 1st.
As I understand, all these costs are covered out of the corrections budget. I don't have the particulars to really speak to at this point, but we do have staff on the line from corrections or others that may be able to answer that question. Perhaps that may be a finance question, but as it relates to these costs, they will be covered out of the corrections budget.
Is there anyone from finance? It's not coming from the general fund budget that we adopted. It's coming, well, I guess trust funds are part of the budget, but it's not coming from the corrections budget that we approved, right? It's coming from a trust fund stream.
That's correct. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, it is actually coming from the trust fund.
Do you or anybody know why it wasn't included in the budget that we adopted in June?
I don't know if it was an identified need at the time. I guess Mr. Johnson can probably speak to that.
Well, it certainly was a need, but I think this summer when the paper itself was introduced with the citywide contract, it was, from what I understand, it was more of a miss by us not including it during that time. But the broader question, I apologize, I do not have the answer at this moment, but I'll be more than happy to get that answer to the committee as soon as we're done with this call.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Westmoreland's line of questioning has kind of reawakened some of my concerns and an interest in getting the answers to some of the questions, before I can, feel real good and about my upcoming vote. And so I don't believe we have a motion yet. If not, I will.
Mr. Ship, can I make a motion?
Of course.
Moving forward with no recommendations based on them answering the questions by Monday at our council meeting.
Ms. Kempson Wright, have you captured those questions?
Yes, I have. Thank you.
Okay. I will go ahead and second that motion. Questions or comments about the move forward with no rec on condition motion?
And I would,
Yes, ma'am.
we also make sure that we clearly understand what the asks are again. Did everybody get clarity on the questions that were asked so we can make sure that they're correct before Monday?
Yes, if that was for me, Councilmember, this is a testimony.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, we'll be sure to do that and include that before Monday's council meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, if there's nothing else, let's open that vote.
The vote is open.
All right, it passes with 4 yeas, 1 nay, and 1 abstention. That brings us to our walk-in. Ms. Kempson Wright, did you start a caption?
Yes, it's a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or her designee to execute an intergovernmental agreement with Fulton County Board of Health regarding the provisions of pre-exposure prophylaxis services to high-risk populations within the city of Atlanta for a period of 1 year and the amount of $100,000 and 0 cents and for the purposes.
All right, and who's presenting?
One second.
Thank you.
We're trying to determine who's presenting this.
Thank you. I'm sorry, is this an ordinance or a resolution?
It's a resolution, and
well, if we
I'm not.
if we don't have a presenter handy, I would recommend that we think about taking this up on the floor at the end of the meeting.
Dr. Jeter is supposed to be presenting. I just received that information. We will try to make sure she's granted access if she's not on the call already.
Let's give it another couple of seconds, but from what I understand, this is fairly innocuous, and I wouldn't expect a lot of heartburn if we took this up on the floor. Now, does anyone on the committee have any objections to following that course? All right. Ms. Kempson-Wright, let's see if we can line up the presenter for the meeting and take it up at the end of the full meeting.
Yes, sir. We were actually getting ready to grant access to Dr. Jeter. She.
Oh, okay. All right. No, let's go.
Mr. Chair, I apologize. We've just been asked if we could just take this up on Monday, if the committee can move it forward.
All right, I'll make a motion to send it forward with no recommendation on, well, how about this? Why don't we do it on condition of receiving a white paper that gets all of the required background.
Mr. Vice Chair, there is a white paper attached to it. It's in your package that gives the background of it. It's the very last page, page 65 of your package.
Well, based on that, I'm personally fine with this paper. I'll support any council member who, wants more time or wants to send it forward under in some other manner. But
and we were able to get Dr. Jeter on. She's on right now.
Okay.
Hi, this is Dr. Jeter, Chief Health Officer of the City of Atlanta.
Hey, Doctor. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We make it as difficult as we can for people.
It's okay. That's 2020 at this point.
So in a nutshell, what does the committee need to know about this legislation?
So what we have done in the past is a lot of work to partner with the Fulton County Board of Health in thinking about the mayor's focus on HIV and PrEP expansion. And so this agreement was already signed previously, but as soon as everything was finalized, COVID hit our city. And so Fulton County Board of Health had to shift all of their efforts to focus on their COVID-19 response. And now that the Fulton County Board of Health is in a better position to respond, they can shift some of their efforts back to this particular project. And during that time, while everyone was really focused on COVID-19, that agreement expired and we just need to renew it. No additional funds are needed. We just need to proceed with that particular agreement. And the project focuses on expanding PrEP services, hiring a PrEP nurse, and really enhancing PrEP access for Fulton County and City of Atlanta residents. And PrEP is the pill that prevents HIV, for those of you who may not know that. And that's it in a nutshell.
All right. Thank you for that. Questions or comments?
Move approval. Westmoreland.
Okay. And I will go ahead and second that. Any other questions or comments? If not, let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
All right, 6-0, motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. Ms. Kempson-Wright, do we have anything else for the good of the body?
No, Mr. Vice Chair, we do not.
Any remarks from committee members? All right, all, thank you very much. Seeing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.